Today, for my 50th guest, please welcome my guest today, Khiren.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
Hello. Once again, it is my pleasure, Khiren. So, I'm sure that most of the people in chat are already familiar with you, but for anyone who isn't, if you could please introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Khiren. I'm a Red Panda VTuber. I specialize in comfy vibes and just hanging out with everybody on stream. I mostly play variety games, although recently my brand has somehow shifted to likes to play hard games even though she's bad at them. So if that's the sort of thing that you might enjoy, feel free to stop on by my channel, and don't forget to drop off any apples when you get there. Those are for me. Okay?
Yes, please do drop off the apples. Apples are a central part of your brand, a central part of your interests, and I've had the apple emotes up on my own handle on Twitter all week, and definitely give the apples.
Yeah, we'll start off on the right foot if you bring apples.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, a variety streamer, but more recently you've shifted into, I suppose, not just Souls-like, but challenging games in particular. And it's the type of thing that there's a fair number of people who have their bread and butter as that type of really challenging game because they make for really good streaming content. That it's the type of thing that you can see the progress. It's very exciting. But one thing that you do in particular that I suppose has stood out to me is the fact that you approach these things with a certain level of zen that you don't see with every streamer. That some streamers, that they make their content, they make their brand on being shouty, on the rage, that, they know themselves and they're playing it up a bit because it's fun and it's something that chat reacts to, seeing somebody get really, really emotional. But you are just so calm, Khiren, whenever you're playing these games, that you're just taking everything in stride. And obviously you get super hyped whenever you beat them, but all these times that you run up against a wall in these, you're playing on really hard difficulties, that you're no chump when it comes to these things. That even if you say you're not good at these games, I beg to differ. I respectfully beg to differ there. And it just, all right, we died, add to the death counter, whatever, we'll get them next time. And even when you're a little bit niffed, it's like, I don't think that hit should have counted. I thought I avoided that. All right, moving on. That you're just, you take it in such stride, Khiren. And I'm kind of curious, is that something that has always been very easy for you? Have you always just, I suppose, been that type of easygoing, go with the flow type of person? Or is it something that you perhaps discovered about yourself while streaming?
Honestly, it's so funny to me hearing anyone describe the way that I approach things as zen and very calm. Because, if you've ever been around my streams, anyone watching, one thing you probably have noticed is that I try really, really hard not to swear
This is true.
while I'm streaming. This is not because I have anything against swearing. I actually have a potty mouth, but I've found that trying to keep things like that in check not only help keep my attitude more positive, but are just it's just better for making a welcoming kind of atmosphere. And I think that kind of bleeds into how I deal with more frustrating things, because it is frustrating, but on one hand, I know that if I let myself get upset over it, then it will just kind of spiral more and more, because I feel my emotions very strongly. So if I let something start leaking through, then it's going to turn into me being really cranky, really frustrated. Then I'm going to get worse at what I'm doing because I'm trying to rush it or anything like that. So it's actually a really active thing that I'm trying to stay positive. And of course, it works. I am able to keep that positive attitude, but it's very much so a conscious, almost decision to try very hard to keep it positive, both for myself and for everybody watching, because I personally really don't enjoy watching streams where people legitimately seem like they are upset and not having a good time. Like like you said, there are people who will like ham it up. We're playing something hard. Oh no, we almost had it. Ah, things have gone so terribly wrong. But at the same time, there are people who legitimately just don't try and filter out negative feelings, and that's just no fun to watch. So I just do my best to try and keep a positive spin on everything because that's the kind of thing that I prefer watching.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree that I never like I if I feel that the streamer is not having a good time, I'm not going to have a good time either. I don't like that type of, you know, there's a difference between playfully frustrated and truly angry.
Yes.
And I definitely appreciate that difference. And I definitely enjoy, when someone, like you said, just hams it up and is, a bit loud, a bit crazy, but you can tell, all right, even if they are screaming a little bit, that they're still having fun their own way. And that's what matters. But I think it certainly speaks to you as a person that you know yourself well enough to know, all right, that I need to take this particular approach because otherwise I will start to not have a good time. And then it is also impressive that not just knowing yourself well enough, but then being able to put in and maintain and succeed in that conscious effort to have yourself be in that calmer mind state, that softer spoken, that comfier vibe. And it's a type of thing that usually you think comfy streamer, comfy vibes, that's not usually what you get in that particular subgenre of games.
Yeah.
And like that might honestly be a part of your success, is that you're able to sort of provide that type, that flavor of content in this genre that does not normally see it.
Yeah, for me, it's less about like I want to just like beat the crazy difficult thing because I can. And it's more like the types of things that I enjoy in the hard content sphere are things where I can like learn a pattern, react to things, and like refine how I approach them. I don't want something to be hard just for the sake of it.
Yeah, that you want it to be a
Because
challenge that is a puzzle to be solved almost.
yes, and then once you like feel yourself making progress, that's exciting. When you learn something that you can use to your advantage, that feels really good. And then when you finally beat the thing all on your own accord, like that's what drives me when playing those kinds of games. And that's also part of why I'm super adamant about avoiding people trying to backseat and give me hints
Yes.
when I play these games, because with Sekiro, for example, which has been a long-running game at this point, I know that my mods are desperate for me to beat the game because there are so many people that backseat it. But FromSoft games seem to have a really passionate fan base that, for some reason, don't like watching other people struggle in the games, even though the entire appeal is struggling in those
yeah.
games.
And like, I want to think that it comes from a place of wanting to help and saying,
Yeah,
oh,
but
I
like,
struggled through this. And if I can help someone realize that there is a strategy that they feel they are equipping you better, and that you still have to be the one to take this new knowledge and implement it properly. But I absolutely understand your approach. And like you mentioned, that one of the things that you are truly adamant about is no backseating on that type of game, because you want to figure it out. And that even if there is this other optimal strategy, you want to stumble into it on your own, just through your own discovery. That
yeah.
you want to be able to have that experience, go in clean. And props to your mods. One thing I always say is mods are unsung heroes of any given community. I did
They
professional
really are.
community management for several years, and it's something that I realized I could not do long term, and that was when I was being paid for it. So to all the mods out there, just unpaid, unsung heroes doing incredible work. And you definitely have seen them in your stream, that whenever someone comes in, that they are very quick to bonk, and not even maliciously, that they'll just say, hey, no backseating. And it's not unless that person continues to be a pain that they then actually bonk them for good.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, that it's a very visceral type of just success when you're able to iterate on that type of game and be able to see that progress. And okay, first time I went up against this boss, I didn't get in 5 hits. And then a couple of runs later, all right, I got him down a quarter of health, getting down the halfway point, getting to phase 2 for the first time, just slowly but surely chipping away. And yeah, you have a couple bad runs here and there. Sometimes you'll just be like, okay, I know I took a bad hit really early on. I'm just going to let him kill me. That way I can get to the next run and have another go at it. But that slowly but surely, you can see that progress over time. And that for you, you use the word pattern. And that's definitely how you approach it. And it's true that obviously these things have patterns, but I feel like you approach things from a particularly analytical standpoint. I used the word puzzle earlier, and that just finding those patterns, finding those rhythms. And I guess I really appreciate how you take that approach, because it's something that it's clear that everything you're doing as you learn is sort of a calculated learning.
Mm-hmm.
Analytical. I like that.
Stems from, like, my first difficult gaming thing that I started getting into was Savage Raids in Final Fantasy XIV, and those are pretty much just scripted. Like, the timings are set every time, but if you mess up, you're going to die, or you're going to wipe the entire party and ruin the run. So, like, there may be a part where this mechanic is either A or B pattern, but you know that it's going to be one of those two things and react accordingly. And you learn the timings, you learn where you might need to be, you optimize through that. That is incredibly satisfying to me. And I think that's definitely the root of my wanting to just get good at stuff with things like that.
Mm-hmm. Do you
things that are
have
more super arbitrary, you have less of a pattern, so to speak, to follow. That's less that I like. But if it's, you have this set pool of moves that a boss could pull from, and you have this split-second animation before each of them, learn what each of those are and react to them in the right way. Stuff like that just feels very, very satisfying.
Yeah, that it's not quite rhythm game, where if you do it enough times that you can just memorize the exact pattern that's going to happen. But like you said, having that split-second notification, that it becomes a combination of, one, your reaction time and being able to recognize those patterns, and then being able to do what is, not quite a rhythm game input, but like we've been saying, that pattern, being able to figure out, all right, how do I go from here? And that each run is not exactly the same, but slowly sort of learning that dance, as it were. And
Yes.
It's definitely fun to watch as a viewer as well. And obviously, Souls-like games are very, very popular for streaming content in general. And I think that's part of why it's so satisfying, because it's satisfying for the streamer, for the player, and for the viewer as well, to see this type of progress. And obviously, when you actually beat a boss, it's, highlight of the day. It's a huge hype moment for everyone. That you've said on multiple occasions that you are actually shaking sometimes, because obviously, after working at something for so long, and then there's that, you can feel your pulse rising. I don't think you've ever actually done a heart rate monitor stream, but I
That's
would
gonna
love
be
to see that
coming up.
sometime.
Yeah.
Okay, good, because it's the type of thing that, whether it's in a Souls-like game or really any game, that, as you're getting closer and closer to the end of a boss battle, that you see that health bar going down. I don't think there's anyone who hasn't experienced that, palpable heart rate increase, that you can tell, all right, I'm getting worked up here because I'm almost at the end, and you want to make sure that you actually cross that finish line. It's a very satisfying moment for both the player and the viewer.
Yeah. For me, it's once I know I can start getting close to clearing something that's difficult, I try to stop looking at the HP bar. I know I can't fully stop myself. I just can't resist it. But I try so that the less I'm looking at it, the less I know that I'm right there on the cusp of clearing, and the less that I'm
Yeah.
going to get excited and then choke and
Try to
mess
sort
up
of
at the
almost
very end.
circumvent your own natural tendencies to avoid that extra stress in a way. I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, I know I will freak out about it, so I try to put myself in the position where I can freak out less.
Mm. Like you mentioned, you're near the end of Sekiro, that it has been it's been over a month now, at least a month. I don't recall exactly how many weeks, but you've slowly but surely been chipping away at this game, and you are now at these, post-game bosses, and they are particularly difficult. You're actually at the point where whenever someone raids in, that you take a moment to say, we're in end game content. If you want to remain spoiler free, you might actually want to tune out.
Yeah, like, please
one of the
look
few
away
things.
if you want to play this blindly at some point. I don't mind you leaving if you don't want to potentially get spoiled on something.
Now, do you have any ideas of what the next game in this sort of genre might be once you finally do clear all of Sekiro?
I honestly probably will take a step back from Souls-like games for just a bit, both for myself and my mod's sake.
That's fair. That's
Lower
very
our
fair.
blood pressure a little bit. You mentioned heart rate monitor, and I recently had a charity stream, and one of the goals that we passed was for me to get a heart rate monitor and play expert levels in Cuphead. So that's going to be one thing that it's still a challenging game that I'm going to smash my head against over and over and over till I figure it out. But it's still a different
It's a very
type of
different
genre.
type of genre. Yes,
Yeah.
that it's both the run and gun and the bosses, but being a 2D shooter makes it very different by nature. And it actually brings us to a really good extra point. I mentioned during the intro that for my first anniversary, just a bit less than a month ago, I did a charity stream, and it was funny that you did a charity stream the very next week, and that we actually both raised about the same amount at $4,000, which is just super incredible. You raised it in far less time than me. I made a marathon out of mine. You did yours all in one day, all in one go, and just congratulations to you, to your community, doing incredible work there. Was that your first charity stream? I feel like it wasn't, but it might have been.
It actually was. It was my very first charity stream, and honestly, my expectations were really, really not high at all. Because, I mean, while it's a cause that I personally believe in and think that deserves attention, I don't expect anyone ever to, put money forward. Everybody has their own issues. Everybody has bills to pay. So I don't go into things like that expecting a large turnout, but my community really just blew me away. I legitimately teared up at several points during it. Near the end, we also teared up due to sheer horror of somebody pushing me to the final stretch goal of needing to finish Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion. On one hand, yay, money for charity. On the other, dear God, I never thought we'd get anywhere close to this. Oh no.
Yeah, that's very similar to my experience that when you set up these campaigns, they always require you to set a goal of some sort. So I just sort of arbitrarily set my goal at 1,000. It was like, okay, I'm pretty sure that over 2 days and 24 hours, because the way I did mine was 12 hours on Saturday, 12 hours on Sunday. That way it wasn't, 24-hour slog, but it was still 2 marathons over one weekend. And it meant that there was a lot of opportunity to bring in past guests. I think I believe it was 30 people who came back. Most of them were prior guests. There were a couple that were from groups that I had guests from before that hadn't actually been on the show. And then I also actually was able to speak with the executive director of the group. And the two groups we were supporting were similar, but different. That I was supporting Child's Play, yours were Gamers for Love. But in the end, their goals are very much similar. They're getting games in support to children in hospitals and domestic violence shelters, and helping, whether it be with that physical therapy or just the sort of neurological distraction therapy of being able to make it so that they're able to get through pain or different circumstances easier. So little parallel there as well. But for me, I had set that $1,000 goal, and then, it gets hit after 6 hours. And mathematically, I can do all right. Well, 6 hours is a quarter of 24 hours. So mathematically, that means that it would be 4,000 at the current rate. There's no way that it's going to keep up. This is just people being very generous early on. And we've hit this goal. And, charities live on $5 and $10 donations. So even if we didn't hit that goal, any amounts of success for sure. But then to see it just keep rolling in, that it seems to be that in general, the VTuber community is a very, very generous one. And it's always cool to see because more often than not, when I see people doing charity streams, the results are beyond what people expect. And maybe it's just because we as content creators sort of self-temper our expectations because we never want to have a situation where we feel like we haven't accomplished the goal or that the community feels too pressured to support. But for whatever reason, be it the overall generosity or just the balance of everything, that a lot of people in the VTuber community have done a lot of great work for a lot of really, really meaningful organizations. And I'm very happy that you were able to have yours. The two rewards that I still need to pay out on is I need to do a stream where it is a full reading of the B-movie script. And I also need to deliver on an ASMR stream. So I'm going to start, putting the pieces together for that. So we each have our own little to-do list there of, all right, we did charity and now we need to do this.
Yeah, B-movie in particular is something that I've had to deal with myself far in the past in my streaming, and Godspeed.
Yeah, I've seen a couple people do it before, and that was part of why I put it as a goal, because I was like, all right, I know this is something people enjoy, and obviously I've seen B-movie once or twice, I can't remember, but goodness knows, like if it was twice, the second time was definitely not my choice. It was just circumstantial because let's just say, the B-movie is not something that after you see it once that you usually choose to seek out again, shall we say.
Very true.
But for charity, I will gladly put myself through that pain. And then the ASMR one, I've been fortunate enough to have several guests who are ASM artists. I'm taking a couple notes from them, and we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but community got it, so we're going to do it.
I mean, I think it's, what's the word I'm looking for? It might, something along the lines of like honorable, that you're looking to like get advice from people who actively do ASMR to make sure that what you do put forth as the result of the goal is at least like giving it actual effort, because it's easy to say, I'm gonna whisper into my microphone.
I'm just gonna whisper.
But you really need to like mess with audio levels, mess with filters, that kind of thing, to make sure that it actually is quality. And
yeah,
that's
and
not
I'm
even
sure,
talking about the content itself.
and I'm sure what I end up doing will not be standard quality for regular ASMR listeners, but I want to make sure that I'm at least putting out something that isn't completely embarrassing for me. Well, I'm sure I'll embarrass myself in some ways, but I wanted to, that effort for sure. And definitely I'm looking forward to seeing that heart rate monitor one, because despite the fact that you are very much into these difficult and challenging games, you do not enjoy spooky things.
I do not enjoy spooky things. 0% spook enjoyment.
I'm definitely in that boat as well. Don't care for horror games, don't care for horror movies. I'll watch horror gameplay on streams because that's sort of like watching with a friend with the lights on.
Yeah,
but
it's
I'm
a step
certainly
away.
Yeah, but I'm certainly not going to be seeking that stuff out on my own. And for films, I'll sometimes look up the synopsis if there's a plot that really intrigues me, but I'll read through it and it's like, oh, that's what the new Scream movie was about, and that's how it ended. That's the story. That's neat. I'm never going to watch it. You all who enjoy that, watch it. I'm not going to yuck someone else's yum. I just know it's not for me.
That's exactly kind of how I approach it. Like if I've seen somebody playing bits of a horror game on stream and it's like a plot-driven one, I'm like, okay, I don't actually want to watch this or play it myself, but I'm kind of curious where like the writers were planning on going with this. So I'm going to look it up real quick and then I can just put it out of my mind. If I don't look it up, then I'm going to be like, I wonder what was going to happen.
Yeah,
And
and
then I'm
then it
thinking about the
just gets
spooky
worse.
thing.
Exactly. That the
I gotta,
knowing.
this is kind of like a recurring theme, but I gotta keep control of my mind. Like, I
Mhm,
know
mhm.
how my mind's gonna work, so I'm gonna rein it in when I can.
Yes, exactly, because that sort of that curiosity, that wondering is just gonna sort of give it more mental real estate and time, and it can spiral into, oh gosh, like that's creepy because your mind is I feel like it's gonna impulsively go in directions that make you most uncomfortable because you know it's a horror movie. So you think, all right, what would scare me? What would make me uncomfortable? And then your mind just goes those places. And then it's just worse for you
Yeah.
because statistically speaking, the the likelihood of the film actually doing that is low, that they probably had some unexpected thing because that's what a lot of horror films rely on, something unexpected. So I'd rather know what's this twist, what's this unexpected thing, because then I know it's not the thing that I particularly don't like. I have that sort of resolution that it just sort of that knowledge of knowing, all right, that's what it is. That's kind of nice. And then your mind just calms down because there is that known at that point.
Yeah, resolution is a very good way to put it. Just close that chapter of stuff that you could be thinking about, and then you put it back on the shelf and it's gone.
Mhm.
Versus, oh no, it's open ended. I'm not sure what happened. I wonder what happened. And then you just
It
lock
just gets
into it and
nope, nope.
I don't want none of that.
Oh, Savvy. Hello, Savvy. Savvy is a previous guest of mine. Speaking of people who have done some ASMR, she doesn't do it much nowadays, but she does a lot of very fun streams. So definitely check out Savvy. Oop, nope, S-O first. Hi, there we go. Now, as for games that we do enjoy and that we do seek out and are having a good time with, you and I have both been just losing ourselves in Pokemon Legends. This is not a game that you have been streaming. It's one that you've just had for yourself off the air. And I was glancing at my file before we started today, and I have put a little bit under 55 hours into that game over the course of a week. It has been a long
Whoa.
time since I fell into a game like this.
Yeah, I started it on stream because I got the digital copy day it came out, and I was like, yeah, I can stream it. It's the new thing, but both as a full-time streamer, thinking to myself afterwards, like, okay, literally everybody in the world is playing this and is at the beginning, so who or doesn't want spoilers, so should I actually keep streaming this? But also going, man, I kind of want to just sit back, get cozy, and play this myself. So those two factors combined, I was just like, I'm just gonna keep playing this off stream. And then whenever I have free time, I've been playing that game now, and I've almost finished the storyline, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm at the start of the fifth and final area, avoiding spoilers because that was something that I avoided as well. I actively did not tune into people's streams that were playing it until I was, at least a couple areas in, and then I would, check in and see, all right, are they farther than me? If so, all right, I'm just gonna slip out, and if they are in an area earlier than mine, then I'll stick around, but I definitely wanted to avoid that as well, and I can understand that while it is/was the Twitch meta, so to speak, for the week, that it's what a lot of people are doing, it's a lot of what people want to see, that making the cognitive decision to not do that has its own appeals as well, because then you sort of stand out as, all right, I'm doing something a little bit different. And that for anyone who is, like you said, either avoiding spoilers or maybe is just burnt out on seeing 5 streams of people doing that same first area, that it offers a little something different.
Yeah. For me, I just realized early on, like, the first section of this game is very tutorial heavy, and while it's still fun, you're talking to NPCs who are guiding you step by step for a while, and that's not that thrilling. But the real, like, meat and potatoes, the fun part of the game is just running around exploring. And that's not necessarily something that is easy to stream well, I think, because either like people who watch things like this typically are either there for A, the streamer in particular, or B, they want to see a specific part of the game, whether that's someone pushing the story because they're curious and they don't want to have to buy the game themselves, but they want to see it, or there's like a big shiny hunting community in the Pokemon viewership. So
Mhm.
people like watching that. But if I just want to like run around and see what's out there, that's not that great of content, so to speak, and there's all that extra pressure to make sure that you're being entertaining and keep talking the whole time.
Yeah,
So that was another part of the decision of just, I'm just going to play this in my personal time and cozy up, because then I can just sort of zone out and do what I want whenever I want within the game. And it just turns into a lot of running around exploring. Then, oh, maybe I'll do a little bit of story. And then, oh, look over here, there's like a mass outbreak. I don't have a specific goal that I'm pushing towards, which is, I think, usually the better way to stream something.
yeah. And for me, I've just been like you, cozying up, getting lost in these areas. The one goal I have for myself is that I want to get the completed research for every Pokemon, and that is, the level 10 research, not doing every single task on every single one, because that's a bit absurd, but, being able to catch them all, because I'm not usually a completionist. I have never actually completed a Pokedex, and I've played every generation since Gen 1. But for this one, I want to be able to catch everything and get that, level 10 research on all of them. And it's been so easy to just sort of be running around, be glancing at the Pokedex and be like, all right, what do I need to do for this one? All right, I can feed this one. What's the easiest path to 10 points there? And just losing myself, and then blink, oops, it's been 2 hours.
Yeah. There's just so many different things that you can do that get you a little bit of progress at a time. So it's very easy to just do whatever you want, whether it's following a specific goal or just goofing off, and you still have made progress somehow.
Yeah, and it's a very satisfying core loop of gameplay, to sort of, use a jargony term there, but the overall flow of, all right, do this thing, get point, continue on, catch thing, do battles, feed Pokemon, that it speaks to a game's design when you're able to take something that is pretty mundane on paper and make it feel that satisfying for that extended amount of time, because sometimes core loops like that can get old after 5-10 hours. But for this one, it's, at least for me, and it sounds like for you and a lot of other people as well, that it's been very easy to keep that going and for it to continuously feel fun, fresh, and rewarding. And that's really one of the biggest it's one of the biggest things that any open world game can do, but it's also one of the things that, going into this about a week ago, that the community at large was not sure if the game would be able to do it, because the Pokemon Company has never done anything remotely like this before. This is such a new venture for them, and to see them really hit it out of the park. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong. This is not going to be, I don't even think it would be Game of the Year material, but at the same time, for Pokemon fans, this is a huge step in a new direction that a lot of people, I feel like, have dreamed of for a long time. And to see them do so much, even if there's, the occasional visual blemish, but now I want to see them continue this and go farther. I want to see, like, Legends Mew in Kanto, Legends Celebi in Johto. I think there's so much they can do with this, but it's been very exciting and satisfying to see that this game has been so successful.
Yeah, I think that while there's like valid complaints, things like, oh, the overworld feels empty, like, yeah, they could have put more trees and shrubbery and stuff, but at the same time, the overworld is actually just like super vast, more than you would think. Like, there are tons of little nooks and crannies that you wouldn't actually expect to find until you go, all right, I'm just gonna clear out all of the areas on the map and, oh, I didn't notice this last time I was here. There's actually like a little tiny cave here and there's something in there. Like it just, while it isn't a visual masterpiece, they really did blow my expectations out of the water insofar as like making it open world satisfying to explore, because Pokemon has historically always been a very linear experience. So having not just point A to point B, but you can go all over the heckin' place and there's new stuff to find everywhere, that's just been very enjoyable.
For sure. And one thing that I only really sort of realized in the last day or two when I was thinking about some of those comments was, for the way the camera works in this game, I think that having the reduced number of trees and other elements was a conscious decision, because I don't know that in a lot of open world games, it's usually over the shoulder type of view for just how the camera works and for combat and everything. But for this, you have a bit more of a, eye in the sky type of camera angle for the most part, that you can go into first person view, but that's not really how you play it. That's more for, if you want to get screenshots and stuff. But if there were a ton of trees everywhere, I think it would actually be more frustrating to catch Pokemon, because from how the camera is looking out, if there's too much stuff, you're not going to have a good line of sight to different Pokemon and different elements that you're going to want. So I can understand that, yes, visually it does look a bit barren in certain areas, but I think that's by design to make it so that everything can be seen and interacted with easier.
I definitely agree that there was probably some intent behind it. Like, again, there's still things that they could have made it, like, it's the same tree every single time there's a tree, for example. Changing that up would certainly help, but the game is just very satisfying to play, and once you're actually getting into it yourself, instead of like looking at individual screenshots or a trailer, it's very easy to overlook that kind of stuff because you're always looking for something. And so, like, noticing, oh, they could have stuck a tree here, or that's the same tree I just saw. That doesn't really come to mind as much when you're actually playing.
Your eyes just sort of adjust over time, as it does, especially in a game that has a unusual art style. And I won't necessarily call it unusual, but in the sense that, like you said, the graphics aren't going to be, cutting edge. And to be fair, Nintendo and Pokemon in general have never been about graphics first. And it is that same tree copy-pasted a lot of places, but you're not looking at the trees very much. You're looking at all the Pokemon, and that's what is really gripping. And I'm not sure how many Pokemon games have you played, Khiren? Have you been playing since the early generations? Was it something
I have indeed. I had the gray giant brick old Game Boy.
Oh boy, yep.
With nail polish from my sister spilled all over it, so it had a shiny purple edge, and then we had red and blue and yellow. I am old school Pokemon player.
Okay, yeah. So the other thing that's really gotten me is that for people like us who have been through just the long haul of Pokemon, this game is dripping with lore. That without going into too many spoilers, just even from where I am, that I don't consider it a major spoiler to say there's unknown in the game. I won't say to what capacity and in what fashion they appear, but there's unknown here. There's things that you find that have just bits of lore here and there from so many different areas of the game. There's callbacks to the mainline games, and if you have that extra knowledge, it becomes that much more satisfying. It's not obtrusive to the point where if you don't, connect these dots, that you're going to be lost. But there's a lot of nods, some very subtle, some pretty overt, that are, really fleshing out these things that have already been there in Pokemon lore and canon, and really weaving it into this world.
And I mean, the story has never really been one of the strongest points of most of the Pokemon games, much less this one. I honestly think that, from the beginning you can easily expect how it's going to go. There's no like
There's no twist here.
crazy
There's
in-depth
nothing.
anything, but it's fun for what it is. And
Yeah.
having, little callbacks and extra layers of stuff for people who have played other entries in the series, it is really just nice to have those little nods.
Yeah, and it gives you these building blocks that your mind can really fill in the rest, and you're left to daydream about, oh gosh, these different things, or how do these parts come together, and that they leave a certain amount open-ended, but they give you just enough to play with mentally that your thoughts can wander. Whereas we spoke of horror can sometimes let your mind wander in very negative ways. In this, your mind can wander in very positive ways, and you can sort of fill in the blanks for yourself. And whether or not that's exact canon, that it's giving you these little things to think about, and sort of giving the world that extra little bit of depth and flavor, while admittedly still not being Shakespearean or anything. That as you said, the games have never been super deep on plot or story, but it's giving you just enough to make the world feel more lived in, I suppose.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. It's always nice in any game to just feel like someone put a little extra thought in it past just, this is the route that the players are going on, and this is what's happening in the plot. Anything that's like, this is sort of how things came to be here. That kind of stuff is always just very satisfying and interesting for me in games, and I just enjoy getting those tidbits.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is your favorite Pokemon, whether or not it's in this particular game?
It's very hard to choose just one, but my probably overall favorite is Gumi. He's a tiny little blob dragon, and I would die for that creature.
Gumi, please. Gumi, please. I remember that was a meme when it first came out, because Gumi's this just... It's the pseudo-legendary for its region. It is dragon, and then I think it's just dragon to start with, but then it's dragon steel when it gets to its later versions. But just Gumi is the starting evolution, and it's this adorable little, pink-purple blob with green patches on its cheeks, and it is absolutely adorable. I actually own a Gumi plush. I only have like 5 or 6 Pokemon plushes. Not a sprawling collection, but of the few that I owned, when I saw that Gumi plush, I was like, I need this.
Excellent taste. I approve. Yeah, I'm diehard Gen 3 supremacist, but Gumi just knocked everything out of the park. He is friend-shaped. He's just a little blob. Yes. I love him.
Yeah. All
of my other favorites, or most of them, come from Gen 3. The Ralts line and Absol being 2 other big favorites. But Gumi's just a good friend. So
yes, indeed. Funny enough, my favorite is actually from Gen 3. I'm a big fan of the Beldum Metagross line. I just think,
also very cool.
Steel Psychic is a super fun typing that has all the resistances. It's super good in battle, and it's a freaking supercomputer tank, but also, it can transform and do all this cool stuff. And Beldum itself is just this cute little thing that literally just bashes its head against everything.
Yeah. He's just a little floating metal hand buddy, and he's just doing his own thing.
Then he gets some other buddies, and they Voltron up, and then gets bigger and stronger, and supercomputer psychic tank. Yes, please.
Yeah. Excellent choice. There's very few Gen 3 designs that I actively think are not good. The Beldum line is one of the very good ones in my mind.
Yes. I suppose I wasn't sure what you were going to say was your favorite. The only thing that I thought, okay, maybe because it's sort of on brand, was Applin, but...
I did when I played Sword and Shield. I did use an Appleton on my team, even though he was not the strongest member. I was like, he's an apple pie dragon, and he's derpy as heck.
You kind of need to.
Yeah, but I like Stuffle and Beware a lot because of the whole Red Panda thing, but... Gumi wins out everything, and then Ralts and Absol have been very, very near and dear to my heart for such a long time that they always will probably stand just a little bit above.
Yeah, those are very fun, and lucky for you, without once again getting into major spoilers, that the Ralts line and Gumi are in Legends Arceus. The Beldam line, sadly, is not.
Yeah, I have found both of those, and they are indeed on my team like right away. I was not sure where to find Gumi for the longest time, and then I eventually stumbled upon where he was. I was like, catch all of them, all of them, all of them, all of them. I need all of these friends. And I sent a screenshot to my friends of me returning and reporting to the professor, and it was just like 3 lines of Gumi with
Oh
a
my
tiny
goodness.
handful of other things scattered about. I'm like, I don't have a problem, I promise.
So were you fishing to get a particular nature or make sure that you had one with really good stats, or was it just because I need to get every Gumi here?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
That's
Yeah.
fair, that's fair.
And I just kept catching them until they stopped spawning for a while.
And that is one of the really special moments of just, you're running along, you turn a corner, and you see a new Pokemon for the first time. It's like, oh, this is in the game. And, oh gosh, I need to either run and hide if it's an evolved form, or I need to hide myself in the grass if it's going to be one of the more skittish ones. But it's suddenly a lot of things mentally happen in that moment of the surprise, delight, and, okay, how do I react now to catch this?
Yeah, and that's a lot of also why after I did the first day of streaming it, that I was like, I understand why people are waiting to play this themselves before watching somebody play it. Like, it is very exciting to see something and have that moment of excitement and discovery. I don't want like people to feel obligated to try and watch my stream and then lose out on that excitement of finding a thing that they're really excited for.
Yeah. If there was something that you could add to this game, what would you want?
That's a good question. I would maybe want like a little bit more rotation of where things spawn, I guess, because you can always go back to the same area to find X thing aside from a handful of things that are just day-night cycle. But the amount of rare spawns, so to speak, are pretty few and far between. Like every once in a while in like these 2 areas you might find an Eevee running around, like, but you can't just like I don't know, it just doesn't
the rare
have the
spawns
same
are
sense
definitely
of, like, things
rare.
are moving around and interacting with this area. It's more like they've just placed the spawns here. Oh, that makes me think of another thing. The rifts, they're fine, but I've found myself just when spawns, either I find a patch of grass that's connected from outside to inside, crouch in and walk in, and then just throw balls at things that spawn around you without having to deal with fighting them, or just mount up and run around picking up items. The battling or the how aggressive things are within rifts is actually not that fun, and the amount or the different variety of things that spawn isn't that huge after you've been in like 2 of them.
Yeah, my usual approach there is hop on Weird Air and, just ride in, collect all the items, and just sort of wait around for a spawn that I want. Because like you said, the variety isn't huge after the first couple ones, but there's always these chances for something special to be there. So I'm just usually running around, avoiding getting into combat with anything until I see that spawn that I'm looking for. And sometimes I don't. I do enjoy the rifts that the first time they appeared was like a huge discovery moment in realizing, oh my gosh, I'm not going to spoil which ones were in there, but big scary things happened. And while there are aggressive Pokemon on the map, it's usually not quite so many. So I do like those moments of, super intensity and okay, I know that I need to be moving and running around. Otherwise, I'm just gonna get flattened here.
Yeah, the
Um,
the way that the multi battles work is not stacked in your favor,
no, it is
in the
not.
least.
And I kind of appreciate that because there's some parts of Pokemon games that are very easy. And to be fair, it's a game that is designed for all ages while being aimed at younger demographics. So it shouldn't be Sekiro levels of difficult. But I do appreciate that for the first time in a long time, I have felt actual terror and been like, oh my gosh, this is something I am clearly unequipped to handle. I
Mhm.
should just run and live to fight another day. Or if there is that spawn that I want, I need to sort of coax it into an area where they usually spawn in multiples.
Mhm.
So trying to get that one's attention and just gradually lead it away from the pack so it's far enough that I can engage it without getting into a 3 or 4 on 1 situation.
Mhm.
Oh, also, I've missed several follows. Sorry, folks. Karimaki-chan, Power Crasher 2, Epic Otter, and Fred Verasto. Thank you so much for the follows. But yeah, I can definitely see how those differences would be nice. One quality of life thing that I would like is a bit more ease of sorting or at least
Yeah.
compressing the pastures and, having the Pokemon organized a bit that way. Um, I feel like the fact that the Pokemon games have usually been on touch screens have probably helped that in the past. And I'm playing with the Switch docked. So at some point, I might undock and see, all right, can I just, use the touchscreen to organize pastures a bit easier because it's currently, very granular and slow. But that's a UI thing at the end of the day. So whatever, they'll iterate on that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think the thing I'd appreciate the most with regards to the pastures would be like sort by dex number or something like
Yeah,
that. Just slap everything into order, then you have all of the 50 goomies that you've caught in a row together. You can go through
compare
them
nice and
and
easy, and
then clear everything out at once, and you don't have to go, oh, well, I released something like 4 pages ahead a while back. There's probably one that slipped in over there. Give me some auto sort option.
yeah,
Dear God, my pasture boxes are kind of a nightmare to look at.
yep.
I just don't have the willpower to properly organize them
Mm-mm.
myself with how much demand the game has for like going and catching multiples of things. So yeah, that's a big quality of life thing that I
Zervid
didn't
in the
think
chat
of, but that's probably the top of my list now.
Zervid in the chat breaking my heart. Uh, I can sadly tell you that in handheld, the touchscreen does nothing. Dang it.
No.
But I guess that is a functionality that has never existed in Pokemon, even in the handhelds. Well, you can touch and drag, but there isn't a simple sort option in any of them. So I'm not shocked that they didn't have it here, but hopefully that's one quality of life improvement that they'll eventually incorporate into it.
Yeah, but usually there's much less reason to catch like a massive quantity of
That's
the
true.
same thing.
That's
So
true.
it's never felt as difficult to kind of organize stuff. For me,
Hmm.
I would like make boxes for X type and plop something in there and just sort of have it sorted that way if I was trying to go for like a complete or at least fleshed out Pokédex. In Legends, I'm just kind of like, well, this is daunting. I'm not going to deal with this. Set that aside.
Yep. And like you said, there's so many other things to do in the game that taking the amount of time it would require to get the boxes organized and then knowing how quickly they would become disorganized again
Hmm.
just sort of feels like it would be an effort in futility almost.
Yeah. So just
Yeah.
any basic auto sort, honestly, I think it's the only game that I feel like would be massively improved by that feature. The others, it's like a tiny quality of life for people that don't want to sort their boxes by like things that they've used or types or like breeding for different IVs and natures and stuff, usually people have their own systems to organize in the other mainline games. In this one, there's just catch a million of the thing to up the dex level, but you don't really need them, but they've gotten scattered all over the place in the different boxes.
And they have the sort options for the bag. They have sort options for the Pokedex of, you can be by number, by like order of encounter, which I think was a good one. Nowadays, I'm usually sorting by research level. So they have all those other ones. And I think that's also what feels particularly off about the boxes not having it, since we do have such good sorting features in these other UI areas. That to not have it there feels a bit surprising, but if Pokemon Company, if you're listening in, here you go. But luckily, I feel like we're definitely not the only people having those comments. But the fact that we're honing in on that as, this is one of our biggest complaints about the game speaks to how good it is.
Yeah, it's not a perfect game, but it's a very, very fun game. It's so easy to just pick it up and just lose several hours into it, and you just had a chill good time. So it's been a long time since I've felt so satisfied with like a new mainline Pokemon game. So while there's stuff that could be improved upon, I think that as long as they're willing to iterate upon this and take feedback on what people think, yeah, this was great, this worked really well, and this could use a little work, and listen to that kind of feedback, they could make something really, really, really nice.
And I'm cautiously optimistic that we will get another, because I saw an article just last night actually saying that the game has sold 65 million copies in its first week, that it is performing better than Sword and Shield. So, in terms of voting with your wallet, that the votes are in, and I think that the Pokemon Company is probably getting the message that people like this. And that one thing that was pleasantly surprising is that for the most part, what I've been seeing online is a lot of people have been very positive on the game. That a couple have been grumbly about the graphics, but it feels like as time has gone on, that the reviews overall have gotten better. That, day of, and when people first picked up the game, a bit of initial whiplash on seeing the graphics, but then as people actually get past the tutorial stuff and delve into the gameplay, that they really start having that type of good time. And that now, a week after release, that is where most people who have picked up the game are. So the feedback has been shifting accordingly, and that's been very exciting to see. I was one of the people who was
very skeptical going in, because I had seen the trailers and the screenshots that when you put something in a still image of one specific thing, it's very easy to go and pick it apart and say, wow, they could have done a lot more with this. But the gameplay loop itself just is very, very satisfying. And you can't really capture that in a trailer where you're trying to highlight, like, look, action, and ooh, look, rare thing, and wow, this one's got glowy red eyes, I wonder what that means. Like, you can't really capture the feeling of playing the game through things like that. And I think it's natural that people will pick apart what they can. But once the game came out, people start going, oh wait, this is actually fun. It's not the most beautiful thing, but it's really fun. And then the people who were hesitant and on the fence pick it up, and then they go, oh wow, this has been a really, really enjoyable game. And then the people who are like 75%, no, this is just going to be garbage, and people are only buying it because it says Pokemon. Then some of those people buy the game. And sure, the further down that chain you go, the more people will still be like, well, it's not perfect, but there's a reason that it's sold this many copies already, and it's because people very quickly realized that while it has its faults, that there's just like a ridiculously fun core gameplay to it.
Yeah, there's something really good here, and like we've been saying, just we want to see that iteration, and I hope that it becomes a running side series similar to the Mystery Dungeon series has gone, and there have been some really good ones. Yeah, Mystery Dungeon is really good. You had Pokemon just BGM playlist earlier in the week. I forget for which of the streams. And it
Yeah,
was
I
for the
had it for
drawing
my
one.
doodle request,
Yeah.
or it wasn't doodle requests, but for the charity stream, everyone who donated $10 or more got to spin the jank doodle wheel. So I was redeeming those like left hand, tablet upside down, eyes closed, all that terrible, terrible torture.
Yeah, no, that was a very fun stream, and that's something that you've done for other ones, that your pen in mouth
Oh
doodle
no.
are prolific. I don't have any of them handy here because, as one would expect, they are not, high quality masterpieces. The fun is watching and hearing you create those, and obviously, you are an artist. One thing that caught my eye early on was, well, obviously you've done all of your emotes, so folks in the chat, spam those Khiren emotes if you got them. But you've also done emotes for one of my past guests, Jusagi.
Oh, yeah.
Jusagi was one of my very first guests. I think that it was in the first 10, I'm pretty sure, that, Jusagi and just Isekai Inc. as a whole. I've had Ellie and Booster as well on. I think I saw them in the chat earlier, actually. And so it was fun when I discovered you to realize, oh, that's where those are from. Going back, if memory serves, I think it was Olivia, another of my past guests, that rated into you one of the days that, this being episode 50 now, that somewhere around episode 20, 30, I've started to get a lot of my guests via raids from other previous guests, because I like to still tune into my past guests. It's not just, all right, you've been on my show and bye. That I invite people to be on the show if I have seen their streams and if I like their content, and I think that I'd be able to have a fun conversation with them for a few hours. So, I always tune in to past guests in addition to my usual scouting around. And more often than not, it's going to be a case nowadays of, all right, they've rated into someone that the person catches my eye, and your style, your attitude about everything definitely caught me very quickly after that raid, and I was sure to follow pretty darn quickly, and just sort of made a note. I was like, I need to keep an eye on Khiren because I think she'd be really good for the show. And by the time I tuned in for the next stream, I was sure at that point that you definitely stood out early on. And I don't remember what you were streaming at the time of that raid, but one of the first ones I saw after that was an art stream, and the pen in mouth doodles and other silly ones are something that you definitely sort of embrace, that type of chaos in your creation. And it's something that not every artist does. And I think it's really fun that you have that sort of just quirky, fun approach to it, and recognition of, okay, I can do good art as well, but bad art can be fun in its own way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost less about how the piece itself turns out, but more both for myself and for the people that are getting them. I think a lot of it comes from just seeing the ridiculousness unfold as
Absolutely.
an experience rather than getting the ridiculous thing in the end.
Yeah, it's the journey, not the destination for this one.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why that's more of the type of art stream that when I have them that I do more frequently now, just because if I'm working on a regular drawing, I am kind of just focused. I basically just kind of talk about what I'm trying to do. I'm still at the point in art where I still have a lot to learn, and I'll be trying out new things and have to correct stuff a lot. Whereas with the ridiculous things, it gives me something to really connect with people in my chat on, something that is a lot more interactive, and neither me nor the people in chat need to worry about, like, oh god, is this gonna be a really pretty piece, or are we gonna mess up somewhere? They're all gonna look messed up. They are, I promise.
And just the ones that are...
That's the guarantee.
The ones that are, worse by conventional art standards usually end up being the more entertaining ones. That the other day, one of the just most ridiculous ones was a blindfolded doodle where you were feeling pretty confident as you were doing it. You were like, all right, I think I've got this. I think I got this. You look at the thing, it's like, oh no,
I think this might have been drawing a rabbit for a friend of mine, or
Yes,
at least
that was
that's
the
the
one. That
first
was the
one that
one.
comes to mind with the, yeah, I think I got this, and then, oh no. Yeah,
Things have gone
with that
terribly
one in
wrong.
particular, I was like, okay, bunny, we're just gonna break it down into some basic shapes. We've got a potato, we put a little 2 loops up top, and then I'm going to kind of guesstimate where the back of the potato was, give it tail and legs. I guesstimated very, very wrong. It was special looking in the end. The blindfolded ones are usually the most fun for me out of the jank doodle options, because it's like you can't stop and look at it and go, all right, well, I know that I'm ridiculously handicapped in how I can actually make it look nice, but I'm still gonna try. With this, you gotta do it all
You
in
just
one go,
hope,
and it's gonna
and you
be
need
ridiculous,
to
and you
hope, and
embrace it.
because the longer that you wait around, the more you're going to forget, oh gosh, where did I put that potato? Just
Yeah, you
relative
cannot
in
go
space.
into heavy detail. You just gotta go fast and try and remember where your hand was at the last moment for the thing. Go sort of like top to bottom or left to right order, and do it all at once and pray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, just watching it happen, watching it unfold, it's the type of thing where chat knows and you don't for those couple of moments, and people are either cheering or freaking out respectively, being like, oh my gosh, just when she opens her eyes, she doesn't know how it's gone. Oh no.
Yeah.
But it's so fun because it's not a failure. Obviously,
they're,
you
they're
put on this
meant to be
absurd
ridiculous,
handicap. It's
so you
meant
just
to be
gotta
ridiculous. Yes.
embrace it, and I think that just makes it more fun for everyone involved. It feels very bad for me when I know that I'm unable to be interactive enough with my chat, because that's a large part of what I really enjoy about streaming, is just hanging out with everybody and reacting to them and having little bits of dialogue and seeing how they react to things that I do and say. And if I'm just focused on something that is a little more serious, it's hard to really riff off of that. If I do something absolutely ridiculous, then everybody's just chilling and having a good time. And I think that, like how we mentioned way, way, way back, if someone's having a bad time, it's just not fun to watch. If someone's having a really, really good time, that's just infectious. And I'd rather lean into that kind of stuff more than something where I'll just kind of be quiet and focused, just because I just want to both provide an entertaining stream for everyone and also just enjoy hanging out with everyone.
Absolutely. And then you stack on top of it the random nature, because it wasn't that people could choose, all right, I want it to be a blindfold doodle, I want a upside down doodle. That when you had this, when you had donations, I don't know if you spun the wheel in real time, noted it down, or if you did it after the fact, but that it was based on a wheel result that randomly decided, all right, what is the stipulation going to be, or no stipulation, because there were that handful of, all right, this is a normal doodle, and for those,
How did
you
so
could
many
tell.
people roll them? Each of the jank ones had twice the odds. There were 2 of each of the jank ones on the wheel, and 1 proper sketch, and like 8 people landed on proper sketch. It was absurd. It was also really fun doing the proper sketches, because it gives me an excuse to like try harder and have time set aside to draw. But man, so many of them.
Task failed successfully?
Yeah, pretty much.
But for anyone who might be interested in getting some emotes done by Khiren, that you can commission her. You also do actual art pieces not meant for emotes, that the full links for that are on your page. You can also actually get a emote if you obtain 300,000 apples in your channel for channel points. That's a bit more of a commitment. But, if you are looking for these wonderful emotes that 7 Deadly streamers and others are currently spamming in chat, that she does take commissions, so keep an eye out for those.
We've had 2 people redeem those so far. 2 entire people. I think one person is close to a second after some very successful channel point betting.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Because you have done you. That's one of the things that you incorporated, especially into your Sekiro and other challenging streams. Are all right. Am I going to beat the boss on this go around? And if you get those bets right, I can see how that might allow someone to get to 600,000 channel points. That's a lot. So my guess is that has to either be one of your earliest regulars or a mod.
Yes, yes to both actually at the same time.
Hey, there you go. Bear doesn't count though.
Bear doesn't count. He gets his for free.
Yes.
Free air quotes because he does so much stuff behind the scenes and actively with the stream anyway.
Yeah, that's one of the other fun little elements of your stream. Just that the constant support and quiet presence of Bear in the background, whether it be just always acting on guard as mod, or there was the other day where you were just sort of interrupted and it was like, oh, thank you, and Bear had brought you some tea.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. We all love Bear, and that's something that I'm just really extra grateful to how lovely my community is for, because when I decided to start VTubing, a lot of the stuff that I saw is, and this is not throwing shade on the people who do things like this, you do what you want with the kind of content you want to create, but it wasn't what I wanted. But there's a lot of the girlfriend experience and just being really, really flirty types of streamers within the VTubing sphere. And I was really nervous to be open about, hey, I don't want any of that near me. I'm actually married. I like him a lot. Let's not do that. And I've been lucky enough to have a community build up around my streams that not only accepts that and isn't weird or expecting strange kinds of every VTuber must say ara ara or anything like that kind of stuff, but also everybody loves Bear, and that makes me so happy.
Yeah, and I think
it's just great. And whenever he shows up, everybody is really, really excited about it, and that just makes me smile. It's great to be able to be open about something that is important to me and a significant part of my life, and people are okay with that, because I don't try to play a character on stream or anything. I'm just here to play games and hang out with people and try and have comfy vibes. That's really it. So being able to let myself have those comfy vibes too and not worry about that, it's pretty nice.
For sure. And I think part of that comes from that early conscious decision that there has never been any question of, is Khiren in a relationship, or, what style of content you want to create has been very straightforward. And I think that the openness with which you share the relationship that you and Bear have together helps create that environment, because it means that there's, like I said, never any question. And it's the type of thing that if someone is looking for that, the girlfriend ara ara experience that they know, all right, they can find another stream. There's other people that do that. There's other people that do that very well. And that's not what you're going to get with Khiren, but that the folks who stay are the ones who understand that, and that, it makes no difference to them.
Yeah.
And
I think that helps keep the comfy vibe of my community. We have occasionally people that are brand new come in, and one of the first messages that they'll type in chat is basically I really like the vibe of the stream and chat. And that just makes me so happy to hear, because I don't really know what it is that I am bringing to the stream. I think a lot of people feel this way about themselves and their own content as well. But I'm just here trying to do my best and have a good time and talk about it. And the fact that people not only enjoy what I'm doing, but that what I'm doing has brought people together that have that same kind of vibe, that are able to make a community that people think is cozy and find appealing and are willing to speak up in as a new viewer. It's just great. It's hard to sometimes gather the courage to speak up in a stream, especially as numbers of viewers go up and up and up, you're worried like, oh, there might be so many regulars, I'm never gonna like be able to interact at all, everybody already knows each other, things like that. But I feel like my community is very open and welcoming, and it just makes me very happy. I'm very grateful to everybody.
For sure. And I discovered you, in a relative sense, at least pretty late, that it was probably, well, if I had to guess, it would probably be December-ish, that it's been a couple months for sure. No, it would have been, I think it would have been November-ish, I think, yeah. But the thing that I remember, it was 1 or 2 streams before you hit partner. Because it was very soon after that you got that, and that you were able to remove the underscores from your Twitch name. The underscore, as we discussed earlier, is probably going to be forever on Twitter, because Twitter handles changing is very difficult.
Curse you, Twitter.
But that, you know, if it was right before you hit partner, that obviously you had a pretty big community there. But it was very easy for me of just, you know, stumbling and being like, oh, one, you know, like I said, I definitely need to keep an eye on Khiren, that I'm enjoying just the attitude, the vibe, the overlay is great. I love the Panda Squad is super special. That if you have not seen Khiren's Panda Squad before, you need to make sure to tune in. You need to make sure to follow her so you can see this Panda Squad, because whether it be when they all pop out at once, or just the little panda that pops up for the follower notification, that it's super fun, super adorable. And it's something that you have been able to bake into your stream and content, that just thematically it fits, but also they're, like I said, just really adorable.
Yeah, that's something that it's hard to say, like, that success doesn't come from like being able to have solid looking assets, because of course, like, the content itself matters so much, but also being able to have assets that make somebody click on the stream to give you a chance in the first place is a really big leg up. So I'm a full-time streamer. This is my job at this point, and we decided really early on to try very, very hard to invest into the stream, into the assets, so that not only people would have a really good experience when they're in the stream, but also to, again, catch the eye. Get somebody to give me that one chance. You've got like 15 to 30 seconds to catch someone's attention when they first click on your stream. So you better have something that will grab them. And I'm lucky enough to be able to have the opportunity to get a lot of assets that help with that. But at the same time, I also really just tried to pick out stuff that I think was cute, that I liked.
Well, you definitely had good taste there, but at the same time, you could have the best assets in the world, that if you don't have the good attitude, the good community around you, that even if someone's eye is caught, that they're not going to stick around, but you have that good combination of, you know, the assets that catch the eye, the little bits and pieces that make things visually appealing and make someone want to click that follow button if they've just been rated in. But then you have the attitude, the personality, and just the showmanship to be able to keep people engaged, to keep them coming back, and to make it so, all right, you've got that initial hook, but then that over time, obviously, you know, numbers have been going up, and that you are still very engaged with chat. And obviously, as numbers increase, it's gonna be tougher to keep up with chat. And I think that people understand that overall, as not just the VTuber community, but the streaming community at large has continued to grow. I think it is something that, at least for the vast majority of reasonable folks in the community, that we have all come to understand and accept the changes, some subtle, some more overt, that happen when a streamer is successful. And one of those things that, all right, can't necessarily keep up with chat, but you know, you adjust that and you make that mental shift as a viewer as much as the streamers themselves have to, because you have that understanding of, okay, I can barely keep up with chat and I'm not splitting my attention with a game.
Mm-hmm.
And so, all right, you might not be able to respond to every single message, but that you're still very consciously, very obviously putting in that effort to interact where you can. And it's still you and chat, whether it be, 75 people, 100 people, numbers go up and up and up, and they are what they are, but that you're still keeping that overall vibe, even if it's not every single message. And that's
something
I think, a really,
really,
important
really
part, and you're doing it well.
I don't think that I could ever be one of those streamers that's able to just talk forever without having individual stuff to bounce off of. I just don't have that kind of confidence in my ability to just come up with interesting things to talk about just off the cuff constantly. So both from enjoying it and from getting the ability to bounce off of it as an entertainer, being able to keep up with chat is really important to me. And yeah, it's the more that I both play harder games that require me to focus really, really, really hard, and as more people come into the channel and everything grows, it's harder to keep up with everything, but I always am going to try to keep that as much as possible as a focus for me, just for many, many reasons. I just like being a more interactive community type streamer.
And I think that's something that's very indicative of a smart and mature streamer as a whole. Just one of the constant things, regardless of what someone's personality or brand is, that self-awareness of knowing what is comfortable and fun for you. Because as we've said multiple times, if the streamer's not going to have a good time, it's much less likely for the chat to be having a good time. And that self-awareness of knowing, all right, this is what I enjoy, this is what I need to do to create an environment that will be the best for me, and that the positivity begets positivity from the streamer to the community and vice versa. And that self-awareness is something that kind of has to be learned. Some of it is learned in life before streaming. Some of it has to be learned in real time as streams go on and as you figure out, all right, how do I balance things? Because streaming and content creation takes a set of skills that can be paralleled to skills that you use in everyday life, but there are certain things and certain dynamics that there isn't a good comparison, and that you just have to figure it out as you go. And I think you've been very smart as you've gone, that even just subtle things in the couple of months that I've been following you, that I've noticed of, all right, you've been, like you said, very staunch about no backseating, and you've become more comfortable about being just a bit more iron-fisted with that, and not letting things even nipping them in the bud, as it were.
Yeah, I've definitely had to teach myself to sort of stand up for myself a little bit more. It's also like you have to make the conscious decision of like, all right, there's something that's a little not great being said in chat. Do I address it? Do I ignore it and leave it to the mods? Just have to keep a finger on the pulse of how everything is going and be very aware of a lot of different things. And there's definitely a big learning curve to things like that. And at the start, I was very, very much so a lot more inclined to like just respond to everything. But like, if it's like a negative sort of comment, I'm just like, I'm sorry you feel that way. Like a little meek response. Now it's a little easier to go, all right, well, if you're not having a good time, you can leave, and that's perfectly okay. It's like learning to turn off the customer service voice, so to speak, and just realize that I can just be myself. It's all right. You don't need to try to please everyone. There will be people that don't like your content. There will be people that don't fit in with the stream, and that's okay. You don't need to appeal to everyone, and it's okay to say, I don't want this type of person around, whether it's ignoring the comments or addressing them head on.
Yep, absolutely. Sort of winding back to one of the things you said earlier about not putting on an act and being very open about your life, the things that are important to you. One thing that isn't a central part of your streams, but something that I noticed very early on of one of the things you usually say when you need to wrap up is, I need to get started with dinner, that you enjoy cooking off stream, that it's something that you seem to do almost every day, of just, that making dinner is a very special thing for you. And that in particular, your lasagna recipe is something, or at least the lasagna pictures have become renowned in your community, that you posted about it once on Twitter. And one of the goals for your donation for your charity stream was that you were actually going to be publishing this recipe.
Yes, I'm both excited to give everybody a basic recipe for it, because people always get really excited when we post pictures when we make lasagna, but also it's an excuse to make lasagna again and
Yes.
take my time with it and be really, really thorough and take lots of pictures of the process. So everybody wins here. I get to make and eat lasagna. You guys get to see pictures of lasagna and maybe try making it yourself. But yeah, cooking is something that I just really, really enjoy. I don't do anything fancy, so to speak. I'm definitely more of the school of cooking of make it taste good, and that's what really matters. But I thoroughly enjoy it. It makes me happy to make something and put it in front of people and they go, wow, this tastes really great. That makes me so happy. And even if I'm just making basic dinner things, it's still just nice to go, all right, we're gonna go prep dinner, whether or not it's something complex or I'm just throwing something in the oven. I'm gonna just go do my daily routine, stream's done, and we're good. We're good.
Are there any
nice
recipes
both
that are
for enjoying it and as a just like daily routine kind of thing?
Apart from lasagna, are there any recipes that you particularly enjoy making or just enjoy eating?
It's been a while since I've made it, just because there's usually a lot of cleanup, but I'll make like tonkatsu a lot. We'll do either deep fried version if I'm willing to deal with oil splatters and all of that, or one thing that we've taken to doing is doing a baked version where you can toast the panko beforehand, like toast it with a bit of butter, and then bread the meat, and then put that in the oven. So just so that the meat cooks through and you still have crispy, fried up, golden brown crust on it. But I usually just gravitate towards cozy foods, like chicken and dumplings is another thing that I have recently, pretty much since like the pandemic started, learned to make and really enjoy making. Like it started because during the pandemic at the start, the shelves were absolutely ravaged in the stores. So we would buy a whole bunch of meat and freeze it. And I decided, all right, I'm going to learn how to like make a good roast whole chicken. And then I had all the bones. I'm like, all right, I'm going to make homemade chicken stock. And then I go, wow, this is like 5 million times better than any chicken stock that you can get out of a box. What can I use to make this? And now 90% of the things that I make that involve like chicken stock, whether it's or a savory thing with water in it, even like chili, you can replace it with like some of the homemade chicken stock and it kicks it up like 5 notches, things like that. So I just really, whether it's the lasagna or anything, I just like making comfy food that you just take a bite and you're like, this is better than you would think it is. Like I've done my due diligence and tried to make everything as good as I can, even if it's a basic kind of dish.
Everyone else was busy making sourdough bread, and you were over here, playing the long game, the galaxy brain play of, all right, let's actually learn how to cook a bunch of other stuff apart from bread. The bread's the easy thing that, there was a lot of those pictures going around the first couple months, but it's really cool that you were able to sort of take that lackluster situation and turn it into that opportunity, and that you've been able to continue with it throughout all this. One thing that catches my ear, and I could be completely off the mark with this, but kick it up a notch, is a a phrase that was used regularly by a chef named Emeril Lagasse, who was pretty big on Food Network back in the day. Did you watch Food Network back in the day?
I actually did not. I think I've only seen like one thing with Emerald in it. I know Bear actually really enjoyed watching his shows though, but
okay, maybe you absorbed from him in that case, because it just that was a very particular set of words, which, it's not completely uncommon for people to, say, that it cooked the cooking up a notch, but it was something that he in particular was known for saying. So, that was something that I watched a fair bit back in the day, and it just sort of caught my ear. Yep. Hey, 730-150 in the chat. Bam! That was his other thing. Just whenever he would add spices.
Unfortunately, bam. I think I probably would have really enjoyed both his like cooking style and the shows from what I've heard about it. But that was unfortunately not one of the things that kind of influenced me. I mean, like, I don't even know what would have influenced me cooking wise. It's just more like I figured out I enjoyed cooking and like going through things. It's less like following a recipe. I like baking. I'm not as good as at baking because it's very
that's an entirely different
it's
set
science.
Of yeah.
But with cooking, I'll like taste something and go, what can I add? What can I change? What does it need to just like enhance it a little bit more? And it's just been a mostly self-taught process.
Yeah, baking is a lot more scientific in the sense that you need to do certain steps in certain ways with certain ingredients and certain amounts.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the result is not going to be good.
Find a recipe to use as an example to make sure you're changing it the right way, or else you will ruin everything.
Yes. Whereas cooking, as opposed to baking, has a lot more flexibility, that you can have that sort of creative freedom and be much more likely to have something that is edible and just actively good as a result, whereas variations on even the most basic ingredients in baking can have just catastrophic effects on the end result.
Yeah.
Are there any dishes that you've been looking to either learn to make, or ones that you have sort of, I want to eventually get around to doing this? I don't think it's necessarily a big challenge, but it's just, for whatever reason, something I haven't made before, but I'd like to make sometime.
I know that this list is really, really long, and I cannot actually think of anything off the top of my head.
That's fair.
To say for it. I mean, lasagna used to be like at the top of that list, actually. I had never made one before, like, I want to say it was half a year ago, maybe, when I made my first lasagna. Around whenever the first lasagna picture for me showed up on Twitter. That was my first time making it. And it had always been something I considered like really intimidating. I was like, no, I'm just going to try it. Screw it. We're going to do it. And it was great. So I need to think about more stuff to just experiment with, because it is very, very fun trying something new and having a new result that you can be happy with. That's one of the things I really love about cooking.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever considered a cooking stream? That obviously there's a lot of different parts and equipment required for a cooking stream, especially for VTubers that usually are going to want, either a very particular camera angle, or some will use a green screen or blue screen to make sure that only their hands are visible or something. So I'm not sure if that is a particular endeavor that you are interested in doing, but is it something that's crossed your mind?
It's something that I would like to do, but that I'm not really sure if the logistics would ever really make it very feasible.
Yeah.
The biggest reason being that my streaming setup is on the 3rd floor and the kitchen is on the 1st floor. So even if I were to try and it would either be you bring the whole setup all the way down to the kitchen and hope that you can find places to get everything hooked up, or you get 20-mile long wires and desperately pray that they will reach and that the cats don't run over them and unplug something. But that's part of why for the lasagna recipe for the charity stream that we decided the way I'm going to do it is kind of like a blog format, where we'll have like my commentary and like little notes and pictures throughout the process. because that's probably the easiest way to make it more personal rather than just writing up a recipe. And I think that anybody who's interested in specifically how I make my lasagna instead of just Googling lasagna, that's more of what they want. Like, what would Khiren suggest for this if, like, I don't know, an easy thing to change up in lasagna is what kind of meat are you going to put in it, if any? Are you going to use ground beef? Are you going to do like half ground beef, half like a sausage, things like that? And I'll put like a little note about that is kind of my intent. But a whole stream for it just does not seem logistically feasible, and it's kind of sad because it would be fun, but
Yeah.
boy, would it be a ton of effort.
Yeah, like I said, it was not necessarily something that I would expect, but just sort of that interesting what if, but definitely, especially knowing that there is that physical separation from your setup in the kitchen, that's already going to be a ton, and that's already stacking on top of, like I said, you need to have a very good webcam in general, which is not inherently required for VTubing. You need to make sure that you have things set up properly. That way you don't dox yourself or anything. And then obviously just a kitchen setup that is conducive to having very expensive pieces of technology around while you are cooking.
Yeah.
So very understandable that there are those aspects blocking you. And I think the idea of going with a blog approach is actually really cool because, well, one, if you haven't already, cooking with Khiren is really good alliteration. So, and like you said, a lot of people are used to reading and getting recipes in that type of format. So it lends itself to it anyways, and it lets you do this on your own time, at your own pace, documenting it and presenting it in a way that is, one, much more feasible for you, but also is going to be in a easily consumable format for others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty much the goal. And maybe even I'll go the full shebang and do the 20 paragraph long intro when I was a child, the first lasagna that
I was thinking about it. I was like, on the bright side, your blog is probably going to be a lot more succinct, that it's not going to have all of that extra fluff, but
no, there probably will not be a heartfelt story meant to make sure that the Google algorithm pulls up my recipe for somebody. But yeah, I'm definitely going to focus more on like, well, this is how I do it, but you can also do this, because 99% of my cooking is just tasting it and changing it as I go. It's very hard for me to write up a one-to-one recipe, because there's never going to be like the exact same amount of like salt in something that I make, because I'm not measuring it. I'm just sprinkle, eye it, and then taste it and see if that's enough. I'm going to try my best to stop and measure things and note down how much I'm using for the lasagna recipe. But the little side notes that the blog format lets me do will be really, really nice to sort of encompass those self-testing kind of things where you can experiment a bit more.
Yeah. Now, while cooking streams might not be something in the future, one thing that you have started doing in terms of non-streaming content is you actually released your first cover recently. It was a collaboration. Please remind me who the other person involved was, because I am blanking on their name.
Esseph, he is the one who actually made my background music, and he did the arrangement and mixing for this cover of Drifting Souls, and he's also done the arrangement and mixing for another cover that will be out soon, TM. I'm shooting for the end of the month, but we'll see. It just all really depends on the video getting made, and if it doesn't line up, it doesn't line up. But Esseph is a really, really amazing person to work with. I think he has his BGM commissions open right now, actually. So if anybody's looking for BGM, he's got a big endorsement from me, and he's just a delight to work with and super talented.
I'm actually finding. I thought there had been a link at some point. Can you remind me how their Twitter handle goes? And just
Yeah, I can just type it real
I
quick.
think it's ESSEF.
It's at Esseph with an underscore at the end. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, so definitely,
He's a delight to work with and does such a good job with everything. And it's been a while since I got like my first BGM from him, and going back and listening to that compared to like the newer stuff he has worked on, you can tell he's really grown a lot as well as somebody making music, and it's just great. He's always getting better.
and appropriately enough, that's actually what is playing in the background right now. The BGM made by Esseph, appropriately named Hearts and Apples. No, wait, it's Apples and Hearts, I think.
Yes. This
Yes,
is
Apples and
my
Hearts.
second piece that I got from him.
Yes, yeah, that's one thing that I always like having my guest BGM whenever possible. Some have their own, some don't, but I was very excited to be able to have this one incorporated today. It's just very fun, very bouncy. That it's always cool when you're able to find someone who has found a good composer that is able to, put into music the vibes of a streamer, because it is. I'm a musician. I played trombone for many years. I've been in bands, marching bands, you name it. And so music is something very near and dear to my heart. And I have no ability for composition whatsoever. That composers are absolute wizards. And seeing them work their magic, especially on something where they have a focus to hone in on, and being able to create something that is representative of either a visual, a person, a location, something like that, is always very, very special. And Esseph and many, many other composers in the Vtuber community do incredible, incredible work. And it's something that most other types of streamers don't have, that type of custom BGM, or at least not the ones that I have watched prior to getting into VTubers. And it's been a really cool thing to see and hear, getting into VTubers, these different composers and the way that people have been able to be represented in music like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like it kind of is probably in part due to how VTubing is a little bit more emphasis on like a character and a theme, as opposed to more traditional, just like webcam live streaming. It's easier to sort of boil down a VTuber's brand, so to speak, into a theme or a handful of just like the style for a song. So that probably helps. But there's also like the roots of idol culture that VTubing has a lot of. I think a lot of that leans into a lot of expectations on there's a lot of people that feel like most VTubers should do like song covers. I only did it because I like singing. It's not like I want to be a singing VTuber or anything. It just so
Yeah,
happened.
you're definitely not
this would be fun. Let's do it.
Yeah, you're not a red panda idol. You're a red panda who just so happens to
sing.
And to be fair,
yeah,
a lot of people enjoy singing.
There's a lot of that within like the expectations and the just roots of VTubing. So I think it's a little more natural for people to try and strengthen or emphasize their brand or anything like that with music and other custom stuff.
Yeah, in particular, the part that you said about it being a character and a brand that just... So my background, actually, in terms of education, I majored in marketing along with information systems, so business and marketing in particular. So branding is something that I'm very much aware of and hone in on. And the fact that VTubers in and of themselves are characters, even if the character is just the person behind the avatar, that you are very much Khiren. That, as we've said, you don't really change anything about yourself, that you are straightforward of who you are, what you like, what you care about. But at the same time, the avatar gives you this chance and this sort of foundation for branding elements that are not inherently built into normal streaming personalities, I suppose. That I think your observation of it, that being one of the big roots of why BGMs are more common in VTubers makes a lot of sense. That idols don't usually have BGMs. That idols make music, but they don't necessarily have theme songs of their own. But the fact that it is a character, that definitely makes a lot of sense to me now that you say it in those words. So really good observation there. And I know it's something that's very exciting for composers. And, VTubers have provided so many cool opportunities for artists that just, everything from overlays, emotes, the models themselves, the rigging, that VTubing has given rise to this entire mini industry of other tangential creators. And that's one of the other really cool things about it, because it is success begetting success and opportunities begetting opportunities, because, people are, like you said, you made a conscious decision to invest in your stream, in your assets. And in doing so, that meant that there was work for these other artists. And it's something that it's a bit of a trope for artists to be looking for commissions and trying to make ends meet. But it's now very common to see a lot of people who say, commissions closed, because they are getting these opportunities from VTubers and now other streamers as well, who might say, ooh, I want a bit of a higher end overlay, or what if I did have a BGM? And that's something very fun to see, just sort of as an audience member, as a community member, the fact that so many people are benefiting from the fun and success of VTubing as a whole.
Yeah, and that whole thing about so many people having like commissions closed, that's something that we being myself, Bear, and a certain friend have noticed a lot recently. A friend of mine is preparing for their 2.0, and they want to get like custom overlays and things like that. And either you're on the wait list until half a year in the future, or you can't find someone that matches the style you want that's actually open. It's so hard now to find people that are actually open, because demand has just skyrocketed so much. It's crazy. But I do think it's a really good thing that it's bringing more focus to different art forms as something that possesses value. It's not something that you can necessarily like get a tangible thing from, but people like it, people enjoy it. And now that there's so much demand, artists are able to be pickier about commissions that they take and raise their prices and get actual like value that it should have had from the beginning, because people now recognize it more.
Exactly. Yeah, that I actually myself got a logo for the first time. There was two, actually. The one that we had just at the opening, the one on the top of the screen right now, those are done by EROS, who's actually a past guest of mine, and the credits and commission form for her are in the channel description if you're interested in things of that nature. That one thing that I did for my stream, which was very opposite of yours, was I knew I didn't want to be full-time. VTuber Talk was designed to be something for me to... I don't like being bored. I have a lot of other projects that I do outside of VTuber Talk, and it's the type of thing that I will add a project, get my feet under that project, and then sort of evaluate, all right, getting a project off the ground always takes more effort than keeping a project running, especially once you get it to run well and smoothly in a way that works for you. And I will start a new project, and then once it is running smoothly, I will evaluate, do I still have time in my schedule for more? That is there something else I want to do? And prior to 2020, one of the things that I did a lot of was live event work. Conventions, particularly anime conventions, some concerts here and there. And obviously, I was gearing up for my biggest year yet in January and February 2020. And then by the end of March, everything had evaporated. And I suddenly had a lot of free time on my hands.
That is a big shift in like just things happening, availability. A lot changed. Yeah.
And so I started several projects, and it was the type of thing that, all right, started this project, it's going, it's good, I'm, doing it with this other group of friends, and then realizing, all right, I still have more time. Start another project. I still have more time. And the way Vtuber Talk happened was when I realized I still had more time at the end of 2020 after starting, it was 2 or 3 other projects. I think it was 2. But that was when I was, neck deep in the VTuber rabbit hole and knew I didn't want to be a full-time streamer. I wanted something to occupy my time, something that I knew I could do well, that I didn't feel I had anything to offer as a VTuber myself. But I like to think that I'm good at coordination and organization that comes from the work that I did for live events, but also that I like to think I'm good at talking and being able to carry conversations and get others involved in conversations. But since I knew I didn't want it to be a full-time thing, I made a conscious decision to not invest a ton in it because that, my channel is not monetized by choice. It's just something that I decided I didn't want to have be part of it. And so I didn't want to put in a lot of money to something that I knew I wouldn't get money out of. But for the first anniversary, I was like, all right, I want a dang logo. I want a dang logo, especially, being a marketing person who understands the power and influence of logos, that I wanted something. And when I found EROS, I was like, I really like her style, like her work, and I just love what she wound up coming up with. So a little bit of my own origin story there, and just sort of the difference of we are different content creators that have our different goals, and that we've each been able to approach this in our own way. And that's one of the other things that's so great about content creation, is that you can make it what you want it to be.
I think it's also just very important, and you did a great job in this, of being able to identify your own strengths and weaknesses, what you can offer to any sort of community, what you would enjoy doing. Don't push yourself to go too hard into something that, whether it's that you don't have the means to invest enough in it, or you won't be able to put as much time as you would, it would demand into it. It's very important to just evaluate what you can and cannot do, what your personal strengths and weaknesses are. And it's just always nice to see people that are able to do that. And I think that's the kind of people that get attention in the end, who get recognized, who people are drawn to.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, one of the constant themes of this conversation has been, if you are having fun, it's much more likely that chat will have fun as well. And it is that knowledge and understanding of yourself, your style, your goals, that create that environment and help just from a foundation level make it so that you are in a position to have a good time as often as possible. That having your own expectations, your own goals, your own understanding of what you want and need to do, and it creates that environment from the get-go.
Yeah. I very much so agree with that.
Yeah. Is there anything that you've been wanting to iterate on recently? Something, whether it be a particular asset of saying, oh, I want to maybe redo a couple of my emotes because I think my art's gotten better since the last time I made them, or I'm considering getting a new background. Is there anything that you've been sort of eyeing as the next little improvement?
I'm just so terribly amused that you started off with maybe iterating on emotes, because I am unfortunately terribly notorious among my friends and just mentioning it on stream of like, yeah, I might go back and redo this emote at some point, because I've improved so much since I started VTubing, because it's given me so many excuses to draw. But everyone's like, stop, you already have too much to do. Don't do this to yourself. It's the blessing and the curse of doing my own emotes. The blessing of I get to save money on it, and I have full control over it. The curse of
very few artists are ever satisfied with their
critic,
work.
And I see something, I'm like, oh God, I could fix that. I could change that. It's like, even an emote that I just finished, sometimes I'll go, oh man, I wish I had done this instead. I'm like, I can't start over. It's done. You have so many other slots to fill. Look away. Look away. Yeah, so emotes, but That's the main thing. Just, yeah, the self-made stuff is probably the things that I will ever end up iterating on the most because we've tried very hard to, from the get-go, always grab assets that I feel like we could stick with for a very long time. And that's always sort of been the intent because it's totally fine to do this. I'm not throwing shade at anyone who does, but I adamantly don't want to, for example, redesign. From the very beginning, I was like, I'm gonna get one design. Maybe sometime in the future I could get like a different hairstyle or outfit, but I don't want to massively change things up, and I don't want to have to repurchase new things down the line because, dear God, that's such a massive, massive investment in many different ways. So I've always had a big focus on just getting things that I will be able to use for most of the time that I ever need them. But the self-made stuff, my emotes, and something that's been disabled on my channel for a while that used to be there was the small panda redeem, which was a self-made chibi live 2D model that I drew and rigged. That at this point, I'm like, okay, if I'm bringing it back, I need to redo it. But it takes time to draw and cut and rig something, and time is not something that I have a crazy overflowing amount of when there's just a million things. As a general content creator, whether I'm streaming or preparing things or working on stuff, there's always something to do. It's hard to add extra stuff to my list, but yeah, those are things that I'm hoping to bring back eventually. I turned it off initially when I got this model, my 2.0, so to speak, because it was important to me to be able to, for the time where it was new and shiny and exciting, to not switch away from it during stream because when somebody's clicking because new, shiny, exciting, you don't want to not be able to show that thing. Plus, I really, really love how my model turned out, and I like using it.
It is a very good one. The
I
ears...
just never turned it back on because I eventually was like, I could do better now. So someday Small Panda will return, but better.
Yeah, and your model, like you said, just absolutely fantastic. The ears have always stuck out to me. That there's a lot of VTuber models that have ears, and the way that they interact with the model can vary. That usually they're hooked up to when someone blinks that they will twitch a bit. But the one thing that yours have that others don't have is that they have a passive twitching of just one ear, that it can be seen every couple seconds of just, this little floofy little twitch, and it feels very natural, but it's a very nice little charm point, I suppose.
New people to the stream, I'd say there's like a 70% chance that the first thing people say is, "Oh my god, I love your ears." But like as a red panda ears being adorable and fluffy is an obvious like character point thing that would be emphasized, but the actual idle animation was not something that I had mentioned in the rigging process. When I received the model, the rigger had put in the idle twitch, which like it's not even just a one
That's
ear
how you know
thing.
you have a good rigger.
It alternates between the two ears and then the individual left and right ones, so it even has like that extra depth of it's not just doing the same motion every time. And I was just blown away when I first got it. The only thing I had mentioned was I wanted a blink ear twitch, which obviously I got, and as you mentioned, that's a very common thing for people to add. But I was just blown away by the ear wiggles, and it just makes me so happy when other people like it, because that was the first thing that I noticed when I got my finished model and rig was, oh my god, look at the ears.
You said that while you don't plan on ever changing your base design, that you're gonna be here in the Red Panda VTuber for the long haul, that outfits are on the table. Are there any outfits that have sort of been, bouncing around in your head of this might be where I want to go for the first time that I get a new outfit? Or is that something that you really just don't think about and, someday down the line you might put more concerted thought into it?
Probably more of a future thing. Mostly because it actually took me a long time to settle upon this outfit. Like we've both been mentioning, I don't want to have to change things ever. So when I went through the design phase, I tried so hard to make sure I committed to something that I would always like, that I would always feel like represented me well enough that I wouldn't get tired of looking at. And if I get an alt outfit, I would absolutely want to hold it to those same kind of standards.
So you wouldn't
Something
want like a seasonal outfit or a holiday outfit because that's not something that you can use on the regular. That's going to be, for a month or for
yeah, or like
specific occasions. That you want something that, you could use for 50% of your streams whenever the fancy strikes you, any time of the year.
yeah, it has the high standards of feeling comfortable for me to use as a way to represent myself to be met. I am getting eventually, or waiting on art and then need to wait on rigging, like additional animations and expressions. That is much easier, I think, to add on compared to a new outfit or a new design element, and I'm really excited to work on those. But yeah, I tried so hard to make sure that the design is something that I'd always be happy with. So finding a second thing that is both different enough and that I would not get tired of or fall out of love with, it's pretty tough. But we also did that same sort of process with deciding upon the artist and rigger, and thankfully I have zero desire to get like a model made by someone else too. I could not be happier with this one, and I'm so excited to get like the additional expressions and stuff with this one.
That's always good when you find someone that not just meets but exceeds your expectations, and that realization of, okay, if I want something in the future, I already know who I'm going to.
Yeah.
It was that good, that it had that quality, and that hopefully the artist as well also had a lot of fun working with the design, because usually, it comes through. And when they go that extra mile to put in something that wasn't even on the ask sheet, like those ear twitches, that usually suggests that the artist is having a good time as well.
Yeah. We tried really hard. Like this was like the highest tier rig that the group that we went with offered. But again, like it's not something that was ever mentioned. Nobody expected it. It's like an above and beyond thing that just really speaks to getting a product that feels like it had care put into it, rather than I'm making this because it's the flavor of the month thing that I know how to do and we're doing it for money. Like being able to tell that somebody enjoys what they're doing is something that I really enjoy, like getting works from people like that, and that my model came out like that. Just, I'm very chuffed.
Wrapping things back a bit, you mentioned that the cover that you did recently was one that sort of fell into your lap, that you weren't necessarily looking to make when you're not looking to be a idol or a VTuber that is necessarily known for singing, but that you're open to doing covers and songs if it's something that strikes your fancy, and that you certainly enjoy singing, even if it's not something that you want to be a central part of your brand. Is there another song that comes to mind of, ooh, I'd like to, maybe not sometime soon, but obviously apart from the other one that you've alluded to being in the works, something that you sort of have in the back of your mind of, I might want to try this one someday?
There are actually a lot of songs that I'd like to do any kind of work with, but the main blocking factor is just the general cost, because not only do I have to take the time to record things, but to be able to post and use a cover without worrying about copyright stuff, you need an original track of it. Like
Hmm.
somebody has to make a fresh instrumental for you so that it's transformative. And even
Yeah.
then, there's complications. So there's a lot of work with that. There's the mixing. There's, if you're going to be showing it to people, generally you want some kind of video. It's a
And it
whole
adds
lot
up.
of stuff, but man, I would really like to do more. I've been in talks with a friend about doing a cover of a song that's been very, very popular on on my karaoke streams that has made it into most of the set lists. But other things that I would really like to do are songs like from series that have personal meaning. Like songs from Cardcaptor Sakura would be so much fun for me to do covers of, just because I love the songs and they mean something to me. So I would be able to have a lot of fun making that, or just songs from like my favorite bands, things that I I know the words to. I've sung this in the shower so
Yeah,
many
you don't need
times, or
to
like while
learn the
driving.
song because you know it already.
Yes, it's not like learn the song and practice it over and over. This is something that is in my blood, that kind of song. It'd be really
Mhm.
fun, but we'll see if the opportunities present themselves in the future for more. Like the cover that I'm waiting on, the final mix and the video for, is one that I approached Esseph about. So it's been one that's full personal cost, and
Mhm.
I completely think that that's okay and worthy. I don't want to be like, oh, it's too expensive to do this. The work that goes into mixing and composing and all of that, it's worth what is being charged or more, but money is still money.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's
But
a
the
difference
Drifting
between
Souls
saying
cover is one
this.
that Esseph had made the arrangement himself previously for I believe like the anniversary of one of the Xenoblade Chronicles games, and he just approached me after the fact like, "Hey, I already made this. Do you want to do vocals for it, and I'll mix it?" And yeah, that'd be fun. So that one was something that uh just kind of fell into my lap and was a lot of fun to work on without having to worry about the cost of it as well.
Mm, you mentioned Cardcaptor Sakura, which I know is a series that is very near and dear to your heart. There was a tweet a week or so ago about you having to force yourself to not talking, about money and things cost money. That there was a very, very nice, very, very expensive $500 figure, or
Man,
at that
I've
point it's a
never
statue.
bought
It
like
was gorgeous, but
statues or figures, but that one is so terribly tempting. But $500 is too much.
yeah, yeah, understandable there. But for Cardcaptor Sakura being such a influential series for you, where did you first see that series, and do you recall when it sort of crossed that threshold of just being a show that you have watched to something that is special to you, or is it something that just happened over time and you sort of realized at some point, oh gosh, I just love this show?
Hmm. Well, when I was a lot younger, apparently I watched the like English dub of it at some point, Card Captors, but it was like back when dubs were really, really bad and chopped up to bits, localized, change all of the names, all of that kind of stuff
Hmm.
that thankfully has kind of fallen out of favor. But at one point I just remember I wasn't familiar with it, but I had this like vague recollection of like the pattern on the back of the cards in the series, and talking to a friend about it, and I was like, what was this? What am I remembering? And I tried to like Google things about it, and eventually I found the original and I gave it a watch, and it was just like wholesome and happy and cute. It just like, it's the kind of thing that just makes you feel good to watch. But like, well, it's not perfect, especially this like, it's an older series. You've got the like, not monster of the week, but you can tell the rhythm of the episode is going to follow this sort of formula, things like that. But like the characters have depth to them, they grow over time. You feel like you're watching somebody change and mature, and it's just something that since then it's just always been a favorite. Once I like rediscovered it and got to experience like it how it was more intended. And then at one point I also, in the future when I was much older, made Bear watch it with me, the original. And now it's something that both of us just like are able to enjoy together. It's just something that is wholesome and that we share, and it's just a lot of warm, fuzzy feelings and pleasant memories all attached to it.
And that's actually a bit of a rarer path for people, because it's usually people see it when they're younger and they establish the memories and connection then, or they hadn't seen it before and, go back and see the original because they missed out on the localized version as a child.
Mhm.
But for you, it was that weird middle ground where you watched the original and you liked it, and then it was later that you went and revisited it to see it, like you said, in its original form, and that's when you went from liking it to truly loving it. That particular sequence is not actually as common, but it's really interesting to hear that you wound up on that path, and that's how you wound up really being able to fall in love with the series. Because I know it's one that is near and dear to a lot of people, that outside of Sailor Moon, it is one of the most iconic magical girl shows out there, that I would say, like the big three are probably Cardcaptor Sakura, Sailor Moon, and Precure.
Precure and Sailor Moon I've actually never gotten into or watched either of them, but I definitely know that people have those super held in fond regard. I know a lot more about Sailor Moon just from, I don't know, osmosis
Yep,
than I do
that's
about
for me.
Precure, but I think that you're kind of right on the money with those. Are sort of like the formative and like iconic things that people think within that genre.
And to be fair, I have not seen significant amounts of any of them. I think I've seen maybe 2 or 3 episodes of Cardcaptor Sakura from way back in the day with those, dubs of the age, shall we say.
Yes.
Some of the work that I did, working events, was for Sailor Moon events, so I saw a couple more of those, especially with the re-release that was done a couple years back by Viz Media, and I think I've seen half of an episode of Precure just, from osmosis. It's just I watch a lot of anime in general, so I am aware of those being the, big pillars of that particular genre, and just I have a lot of friends who talk about those shows, and I know that it means a lot to them. So definitely very formative historical shows, but those are also, just to be fair, the ones that made it to American broadcast, and that's part of why, because at least for those in the US outside of Japan, that for some of these older series, it's not a matter necessarily even of what was the best of its age. It's a question of what made it to TV, because in the era before streaming.
Yeah, if you haven't had the chance to be exposed to something, how are you supposed to get attached to it and experience it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Makes me wonder, would you ever consider a magical girl outfit, or do you think that's just too far from your usual aesthetic?
Probably not for like a full model kind of thing. For like getting an art piece done of something like that, I have definitely considered it, whether it's like we're clearly talking about Cardcaptor Sakura, something with like one of the outfits from that series would probably be really something special for me to get, since while like I don't have red hair, but Khiren is a representation of myself as much as I could possibly make her to be. So seeing something like that with a character that's meant to be me in like an outfit that has like an emotional connection, that would just be like a very fun thing for me. But I've also thought of like another childhood series that was one of the first things that got me into anime and manga was Tokyo Mew Mew, and there's a reboot of the anime coming out eventually, and I'm considering if I have time, because obviously time is the biggest thing that prevents me from doing the 10 million things that I want to do. But I thought, like, to myself, like, since this is going to be coming back out and it's something that I legitimately really enjoyed a lot when I was younger, it would be really fun to at some point draw like a Tokyo Mew Mew style outfit for Khiren, because the whole thing behind that series is magical girls who have like been infused with the DNA of endangered species and then are fighting to save the world or things like that. And well, red pandas are endangered. It's almost
there
too
you go.
perfect. I can just have
It writes itself.
magical girl Khiren transformation, just like a little doodle of it. And that would just, I don't know, things like that I think are really fun, but going all the way into a full alternate outfit for a model is just a much, much larger commitment. But mini designs of things like that, super fun, something I'm big time interested in both getting and working on. Just making it into a big thing is a large commitment and investment.
Now, on the flip side of all that, obviously, Cardcaptor Sakura can have its intense moments. That's one of the things that, especially, I feel the Magical Girl series that have stood the test of time do well are ones that, you know, have the playfulness, the colorfulness, the accessibility for younger viewers as well as older viewers, but that they also have occasionally intense moments, but that those intense, scarier moments are not the bread and butter of the series. But one of the other shows that you really, really like, which is definitely on the, I wouldn't call it it's not a horror show. It's not something that, you know, like we said, neither of us is really into the horror genre, but it's something that leans into the creepier aesthetics and certainly thematically darker things, is Soul Eater. So, you know, going from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other, is there something about Soul Eater that really appealed to you and got you into that series?
I think the first thing that kind of drew me in and got me to check it out in the first place was that it just had, like you mentioned, it's just a different kind of aesthetic. It really stands out. And like, if you see something that is either official Soul Eater art or somebody's fan art of it, you can tell immediately based on the design elements, based on the art style, things like that. It's very iconic, and that drew me in at first. But one of the things that I mentioned about why Sakura kind of stood the test of time with me was that, like, the characters feel like they grow. You can get attached to them and see like them changing and developing. Soul Eater definitely hit that with a lot of the characters, including the side characters. And a lot of just the notes that it hit really, really, well, to make an accidental terrible pun that I noticed right before I was gonna say it, really resonated with me. We said the thing. Woo! I don't know. A lot of it just, the characters felt relatable and understandable. Like, it's imperfect in plenty of ways, but there's depth to the characters, and they have legitimate flaws that are relatable. Like, flawed characters are 1,000 times more interesting than perfect characters. It gives them so much more points of interest, and Soul Eater does that really well. Plus, I mean, like, the whole idea of people transforming into magical weapons, that's just too cool.
That's just really cool.
Legitimately just too cool. Setting aside all the character stuff, that's something I absolutely latched onto. Like, as a child, one of my, like, daydream kind of things, not like wanting to be this or anything, but like, if I go into my little wonderland in my head and I'm just like daydreaming,
what would I
thinking
transform
about fun
into?
stuff, shape-shifting and all that kind of stuff has always been really cool to me. So like, oh my god, these people are living weapons, and like they can transform into them, and it's like a genetics thing, and eventually they actually even go into, like, they planned out how, like, it's inherited and stuff. I don't know, that just really, really clicked with me. I was like, that's really freaking cool. And you pair up and you have to make a connection with someone to like reach your full potential. I don't know. All of it just hit all of the right points for me. And I just got very, very into it for a while. Very fond of it and really great memories.
In those daydreams, what type of weapon do you think you would become?
Ooh, if I were a weapon, probably...
Or do you think that you would be a weapon meister?
No, I probably would not make it to Meister. I don't think I'm not I'm not that good at anything, I don't think. But I think part of what I would focus on is like I think a longer range, not like a ranged weapon, but something like a halberd or spear
Something
would
with
probably
reach.
suit me more. And that's actually part of how part of Bear's character design that he's using himself came to be. I helped him choose like the halberd as the weapon. It was originally a D&D character that he just really got attached to the design of, but I just think halberds are super duper duper cool. So
They
we're
are,
gonna go
and
with that.
nice. And D&D, that's another thing. That's a whole Pandora's box of my own that knowing now that you play D&D, because that's not something that has, I think you've mentioned D&D once or twice on the streams that I've tuned into, but it's not something that is, a frequent point of conversation. So now I sort of need to ask, are you actively in any campaigns at the moment, or are you...
I am. And I also, it had to get set aside because people weren't able to get everything ready in a timely manner because a lot of things came up. I'm not upset at anyone involved, but I'm
It
also going to
happens.
be running a one-shot campaign for some friends at one point, and I'm really looking forward to that. But I'm also playing in a campaign currently. Bear is also in it, and of course. But it's just really, really nice to be able to insert yourself into a different world or situation, and just even if your character is very different from yourself, honestly, that's half the fun of it, is picking someone that would not react the same as you, but putting yourself in like that character's shoes and actively trying to make the experience more interactive and deep. It's just really, really fun to me. Having a great time with it.
Do you find that you tend toward a particular character class, or do you usually shift around that? For me, I am not someone who is able to just say, I want to play this type of character in my next campaign. For whatever reason, creatively, I've never been able to look at the vastness of the character creation options and have, a pull to say, I want to be this type of character. My MO whenever I join a new campaign is I say, all right, everyone else, you all decide what characters you want, tell me your classes, and then I'm going to pick something that the party is missing. So, fortunately, usually my friends love that because it means that it makes it less likely that we're going to be missing something, and sometimes it'll mean that I'm a healer because there's not always people who want to be healers, but other times I've been a barbarian because people wanted to go with the more technical classes, but we needed somebody who could soak up damage, and that allows me to try different things, and I work better that I'm a big believer in restrictions breed creativity. So when I'm given just those sort of boundaries of, all right, process of elimination, I know I can't be this, that, the other, that leaves me with these couple things. What do I think the party needs most? And then from there, I extrapolate and figure out, all right, who is this character? And knowing the other characters in the party, why is this person there? How did they end up being part of this ragtag group? And I sort of discover my characters in that way. Do you have a particular methodology that you use, or are you someone who is able to just creatively make up something from nothing and say, this is the character I want to be?
Probably more towards the latter. Like, either I haven't been in terribly many campaigns, but I also have like several ideas in my pocket in case the opportunity arises, things like that. But it's like, for the very first campaign that I played in, I decided that I wanted to have a character that was sort of inspired by how I imagined the personality and attitude of my Final Fantasy XIV character, which not really a self-insert kind of thing for me, more like I've assigned like a personality to her based on like the design that I ended up going with that appealed to me. But I play a Mikote in Final Fantasy XIV. You know, I'm a cat girl, so but she's also like minimum height slider, but has like some very sassy, spunky animations, and that's also part of kind of the visual inspiration that I used when first designing Khiren. But I took that concept and I was like, all right, let me look through the classes. What would be kind of fun? Let me look through the races. I decided that the best way for me to do something like that would be to go with a shifter. So typically she was like a normal looking person, but she could go into like a primal rage essentially and acquire very bestial features, less like, ooh, I'm a cat girl, I've got ears and a tail, more fur sprouting, like getting more like a muzzle shape and big old heckin' claws, which then I was like, okay, so we're going kind of more down the savage route. And then I'm like, okay, that matches with maybe doing either fighter or barbarian. And then I discovered Path of the Beast Barbarian, which is basically tap into your inner beast and you literally grow claws and use those to attack. I'm like, all right, we've locked it in. Here it is. There she is. We've made the character. And she evolved from there. But also another thing that I've played was a twin tiefling. Bear and I were both playing the characters in the same campaign that essentially did like a switch off of pretending who was like the guardian, like person in charge of taking care of the character, and who was the like well brought up little lady, and we would switch off who was playing those roles in sort of like a Star Wars-esque who's actually the real one switch up. And I was playing like a glamour bard because I wanted to lean into like we're trickery and charismatic and everything like that. So usually I'm a lot more on like pick a concept, whether it's a personality or a class that I want to play, and then build the ideas around that. And then if the opportunity arises, plop that character into the right place.
Okay, that makes sense. And that's something I've seen a good number of people do. And I feel like if I didn't use my current methodology, that's what I would end up doing, is taking a concept from something else and then saying, all right, how can I translate this into Dungeons and Dragons mechanics?
Yeah.
Because it's, again, a restrictions-free creativity thing of you're saying, all right, I want to create this somehow, that it's not a random thing of, oh, I just know I want to be a bard this time around, or I know I want to be a
I think
paladin.
that's part of the most fun part about character creation in all 4 Dungeons and Dragons is, I mean, like, whether or not you go in knowing you want a certain class or not, you can very strongly just flavor things the right way, especially if they don't hugely affect gameplay. Like, shifters are a little bit different than what I used for mine, and they're specifically for a certain setting, but the campaign that I was playing in was homebrewed anyways, so the DM, just when I said that I wanted to play a shifter, wrote in like a general bestial race into the background of the story, or like whether or not it was less that, oh, I'm a barbarian in a rage and this causes me to grow the claws. It was just we're fusing it a little bit with the racial trait at the same time. It's very fun to just flavor things the right way without having to worry too much about the very specific constraints of this is like the setting in the book.
Mm-hmm. For the twins, making sure I'm understanding this switching correctly. So there's twin A and twin B. Is it that in different sessions you play twin A and Bear plays twin B, and then different sessions you're B and he's A? Or is it in character that the characters are impersonating each other, or is it that
in
they're always
character.
okay? So it's not just that they're saying that their dynamic shifts, but in character they are actively, they're a set of trickster twins here that are playing a gag on the party, even pretending to be the other, not just in terms of, all right, one day I'm going to be sort of the protective twin, tomorrow you're the protective twin, that we are actually pretending to be each other.
Yeah, without going too deep into the full background stuff, just in case certain people are listening, the characters have been retired, but we're still in the same campaign and they have slight background relevance still. But the idea that we went with and how it got sort of written into the campaign was our characters as twins were adopted by this upper class family, and with the intent of being used as decoys to keep their actual daughter safe. So the two of us would trade off pretending to one of us be their daughter and the other be the bodyguard of the daughter who's supposed to be a body double.
Oh gosh, so at that point it's double layered trickery.
It's double layers. So neither of us was really the little lady, and it was all just sort of a ruse within a ruse. But we would the thought was essentially if anyone was trying to go after the daughter, they would not necessarily know that one of us wasn't her. And then there's the added layer of we would switch roles frequently, so they wouldn't be able to tell which of the two tiefling girls was actually her, because there were clear shifts, but it was done so frequently and with no stuttering over it that nobody would really be sure which one was supposed to be the daughter or not.
That's a concept I've seen in media of just the trickster twins or the body double. I've never seen those two layered, and I don't think I've seen either of those archetypes implemented by a player character in D&D. So the fact that you all went to that level with your character creation is really cool, because that is farther than I've seen pretty much anyone go in terms of you not only created these characters, but then put a sort of a weird operational limitation and requirement on it, of just on top of doing everything that we're doing as our characters in the campaign, we're also perpetuating this ruse, which is a double ruse to boot. So good on you all for that. I might steal that idea at some point of just some part of it of finding another player and saying, all right, would you be up for us in character pretending to be the other? I don't even know if I'd be able to keep up with the double layer of then also being bodyguards for another. But the very concept of, as a player, having to keep up with that, because it's no extra work for the party, because in character, either they know or they don't know, and they don't need to worry about keeping the facts straight, but that puts extra mental effort on you as the player, but in a fun way.
Yeah, we ended up having a really good time with the characters and the concepts, but the whole thing actually stemmed from we had the idea of playing a pair of characters, one who was some kind of noble and the other who was their rough and tumble bodyguard, but we couldn't decide who wanted to be which one. To build off of that,
how about we're both
so maybe we switch off, and that it just kind of spiraled out of control, but it turned into something that was really, really fun to play.
Yeah, sometimes the best solutions come from the craziest problems or impasses of just saying, well, wait a minute, what if we could do both?
Yeah, we were just like, well, all right, we're gonna make it work. We both kind of want to play each of these archetypes at some point, and we'll just, well, we ran it by the DM because, dear
Yeah,
God, this
obviously
was
for something
probably a
like that,
pain in the butt to
you
deal with.
can't
But he
not tell the
accepted
DM.
it, so we went with it, and it was just a lot of fun, even though it just stemmed from one of us wants to play, or we just wanted paired up characters was just the root of it, and we didn't know who to make play which one.
Hey, it's a good solution. It's really nice that you had a DM that was willing to be that type of flexible and facilitating of that type of unorthodox decision.
Yeah.
Is there
Big
anything? Sorry?
Big appreciate that DM.
Yes. Are there any concepts that you haven't done yet that you're hoping to eventually get to, whether it be in your next campaign or just down the line, an idea of, ooh, I've seen this type of character or this particular quirk, and I want to find the opportunity to get to play this?
Yeah, there are a handful, whether it's like going by, oh, I just haven't had the chance to play this class yet, or I had like a concept attached to a general class idea. I don't remember what the specific class was. I think it was Grave Cleric. I had the thought of, and this one's not terribly fleshed out, but like an not old, but older lady who's been widowed, and she's lost her husband, and she has the ability to, if she wanted to, she could have like revived him through necromancy, that sort of thing, but some threat is threatening to actually do that themselves and manipulate like people who have passed already. And she's like, nuh-uh, if I'm not doing this, you're certainly not gonna do this. I'm gonna stop you. Like, you don't get to disrespect the dead like that. Back off. And that's a concept that I'd like to mess with at some point, but I've just barely given it a little like think over. I played with the idea of her actively trying to do necromantic stuff and like behind the scenes versus ending up in opposition of it. I think I've settled on in opposition of, but it's the kind of thing that would definitely need to be adapted to whatever campaign came up for it.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting concept of just the idea of, all right, do I want to perform necromancy? Because, there's all the fun, different in-character morality decisions and just implications of, all right, is something going to go wrong? Am I actually going to bring back the person I remember? Stuff like that. If you wanted to have it be successful, you could just be Ellie and Booster. But that's a very interesting and once again just a different type of character approach that between that and the twin one, I think that you as a player and a character creator, it seems that your strength, or at the very least your tendency, seems to be concepts and archetypes that involve people beyond yourself. That in the case of the twin, it's, all right, I need this other person to be in on this ruse with me, or in the case of the necromantic question, as it were, of, all right, my character is thinking about this other person, and that whether or not I bring them back, and if I bring them back, what's the dynamic there, that you're thinking externally a lot as a character creator.
Yeah, I think the thing that results in these sorts of choices when I'm thinking about characters is probably just that I like going into backstories and motivations, and it's very easy to come up with a strong motivation when it's tied to someone else, because just connections with other people are incredibly, incredibly strong. So it's just such an easy thing to pick as something, whether it's a current bond or something bad that happened regarding someone, it's easy to use that as some sort of motivation or why the character is the way they are, just explaining the backstory. And I really like writing backstories.
Yeah, for me, that when I do my own character creation, like I said, I usually hone in on, all right, what is the party missing? And then I create and justify the existence of this thing that the party needs. That I get into the background a lot for my own characters, of just as I'm finding the ways and justifications, I end up writing and saying, all right, in order for them to be this type of character, I need to have this sort of background, and then sort of crafting it in and figuring out, okay, then I guess if I'm doing this, something that I want as a player, even though I don't have a overall character concept, I want to have this type of weapon, or I like this type of style of character. So now I need to justify why this character of this class has this particular style, and almost sort of writing backstory in reverse of saying, I first have to figure out the destination, and then when I figured out the destination, I need to figure out how I get to the destination. So that sort of, it is a unorthodox method, I suppose, but it's the one that I've sort of honed in on. Of it's what gets me to be my most creative, because like I said, I'm not good at give me a blank slate and I make something. It's I find the thing and then find my way to finding the thing.
Yeah, I completely understand. I've definitely thought of things for characters in that same way. You just need, whether it's you want to play a class, a specific class, or you have a concept in mind, just any starting point that you can then build off of. I've never really just had like a full-on idea where it's like, all right, I'm gonna do this archetype and they're playing this. I'll pick one thing and it kind of branches off from there. And I think that it honestly seems like that's your method as well, just with a different, usually set starting point.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the beauty of D&D. There's so many different things that you can build off of and so many directions you can go in.
Yeah, and I have a couple friends that just come to every campaign saying, all right, I know I want to be a Kitsune monk who uses like soul magic and whatnot to infuse their punches with elemental power, and they just know that's where they're gonna be, and that's great. And the fact that D&D and obviously role-playing systems in general facilitate that type of flexibility, not just for character creations, but for the players themselves to approach their creation from whatever angle feels best for them.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm looking at the time now. It's almost been 3 hours already.
Oh my goodness.
So, like you said earlier, time is a very, very precious, limited resource, so I don't want to take too much of yours. I have just a couple last questions, but then I want to let you have your Saturday. I have had a blast. Time has flown. I hope you've enjoyed this as well. Honestly, I cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your schedule. You could be streaming right now, you could be resting, you could be playing Pokemon Legends, but you chose to be here, and I really do appreciate it. So the last couple questions I have, for starters, do you have any goals for 2022? And that can be something broad, it could be something specific. You've already reached partner, so that's not one that's on the table, but is there something that before the end of the year you hope to accomplish?
When the new year rolled around, I kind of went through thinking about goals for the year and all, and it's honestly something that I kind of ended up struggling with, because like the easiest goals to put out there are things like hit partner, but it's also streaming wise, there's a lot of numbers related stuff, but it's also very luck influenced. So I struggled to find things that weren't just me saying I want X numbers, because if I don't reach that, because it's not something that you have full control over, that feels bad, and I don't want to set myself up to be disappointed. But some of the things that I talked about when the new year rolled around, like for goals, were one thing that'll be happening later this month. We're gonna try and do mod appreciation days on my stream, where any revenue from subs or bits or anything will be distributed to my mods rather than be going towards me in the stream. And you've mentioned this before as well, but like mods are just such a important cornerstone to communities and to streams. And if I'm in the position where I can try and give back a little bit for the ridiculous amount of effort and personal time and just emotional investment that they put into trying to make my stream as good as it can be from their end, I really want to give back for that. So we're planning that as my Valentine's Day kind of stream. Instead of having a focus on me or anything for it, it will be focus on loving the mods. I see Seven said, "Don't give it all to Bear." We're not going to be giving any of it to Bear. Don't worry. That's been thoroughly discussed. It will be going exclusively to Cress and Meow, who are my other two mods. But other than that, I'm hoping to get some basic merch out, like stickers and other things that are really easy to get, like drop shipping type stuff set up for. And I have some art ready for that, and if I can manage to find somewhere that I want to set up as my manufacturer and all, I'm hoping to have a few sample things ready for around my 1-year streaming anniversary at the end of the month.
Ooh,
So
very exciting.
merch and mod appreciation are some big things that were goals that are pretty close to being fulfilled. So really excited.
And what day is the 1-year anniversary for you going to be?
We have not locked in the day for the stream yet, but I believe it was the 26th, so late in the month. Will mark 1 year as streaming as Khiren, and it just absolutely blows my mind how much stuff has changed since then, and that it both doesn't feel like a year and it feels like it's been forever simultaneously.
I very much relate with that. The duality of the sense of time of just, you know, I think it's something that many people have experienced, especially over the past couple of years, that certain things in certain ways feel like it's happened in the blink of an eye. In other ways, it feels like it's been lifetimes or multiple times longer than the actual amount of time that has passed. And I can certainly say from my own 1-year thing that it feels really weird in a way of just, you know, it's, wow, okay, it's been a year, and seeing how much you've accomplished and sort of thinking, well, this is 1 year. I couldn't imagine being here a year ago, and I can't imagine where I'm going to be a year from now, and just continuing to take things in stride and just putting forth your best effort, continuing to learn about yourself as a person, as a content creator, and, you know, saying, all right, I've made it this far, and I know certainly more than I did a year ago, and figuring out how to continue to learn more, because if this is what you can do in 1 year with what you had then, imagine what you can do in year 2. That's one of the most exciting things.
Yeah, it's both daunting and very exciting.
For sure. And then the last question that I ask all my guests, what does being a VTuber mean to you? And that's not what does it mean to be a VTuber, it's to you, Khiren, what does it mean to be a VTuber? And I've had answers, everything from very clinical, it is a mask that I wear, it is a tool in my arsenal as a content creator, it's, you know, a means to an end to let me create something. And others have had very personal connections where, you know, me being a VTuber is being able to be something that I can't be in everyday life, or it lets me get in touch with my inner child, and everything in that spectrum and beyond is a relevant and is a correct answer, that everything here is valid. But for you, Khiren, where in that spectrum or beyond do you fall? What does it mean to you to be a VTuber?
That's honestly just like a question I could take in a million different directions, but I will try my best to not ramble forever, just like part of forever instead.
It's a talk show. Talking is allowed.
I've mentioned that this is my full-time thing at this point, that this is my source of income, but it's not. I mean, I do have to treat it as such. I have to make sure that I am considering what at any point could help continue to grow the channel, what would make sure that people are still enjoying watching, things like that. But it's also just been a really amazing experience for me that, like, something along the lines of like a road towards self-acceptance, I suppose, has been a lot of what I've gotten from it. Something that I've been relatively open with on stream is talking about how I, at the very, very start of last year, I got diagnosed with ADHD. And this was something that I'm not ancient, but I am definitely an adult, and it's kind of a surprise to have such a like big thing that is like such a large part of how like your mind works and how you react to things be revealed or made clear at this point in my life. So it's been a struggle and a good thing, both like having a way to say, oh my goodness, that's why I've always had a hard time with this. That's why this is the way it is, and I react like this, and all of these sorts of things, and being able to start taking steps to work around those. But at the same time, there's this part of me that's like, oh God, these things about myself that I don't like, they're permanent. They're literally, my brain is wired wrong, so to speak, and it's hard to necessarily come to terms with. These aren't things that I can fix. They're just things that I have to work around, and I'm never going to be able to approach things normally, so to speak. So there's always been a lot of weird self-esteem stuff, but having people enjoy listening to me just put my thoughts out there, to talk about, even if it's just, man, my cats are really cute, just whatever comes to mind, that people think that me, of all people, is entertaining, that I have something that I can offer to people. It's doing a lot in terms of helping me sort of come to terms with that kind of stuff, that it's okay to have these kinds of struggles and to be different, as long as you are able to accept it and work around it. You can find something that works for you. And it's done a lot for me in that regard, like seeing some kind of value in the way that things are, I suppose. So it's not just a job, it's something that is helping me kind of accept myself and get in touch with some self-esteem.
That's really beautiful, honestly. Like that, I'm so happy that you've been able to, as I've said a couple times during the show, learn about yourself or figure out how to make Khiren and how to make content creation something that is comfortable for you, that is your own, and that you're able to get as much out of it as you put in, which is obviously a lot. And especially when it is something so personal, so fundamental, that hearing that you're able to get something of that depth out of it, on top of making it your job, on top of making it your livelihood, is very, very special. And I'm so happy for you. I'm so excited to see what you do, not just for your 1-year anniversary, but down the line. That I am very confident that the best is yet to come for you, Khiren, and I can't wait to see where things take you.
Thank you. That's very sweet.
Before we get going, is there someone you would like us to raid?
Ooh, let me see if I have anybody.
I'll let you go on and search around a bit while I do the last bits of housekeeping. Fire Samson, thank you so much for the follow. I missed that a couple minutes ago. Well, and 730150. Is that just how I'm supposed to pronounce your name? Just read out all the numbers, or do you go by 730, by 7? What do I call you? But thank you very much for the follow.
I've been calling them 73 because, as you can also see, we have
there is 7 deadly streamers, so we can't just call them 7. That's true. That's
that
true.
have been hanging out in my community, but
yes. And Shadow Rocks 92, thank you as well. As I mentioned, I'm Jay. This is Vtuber Talk. This has been episode number 50, the Big 50 with Khiren. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in, for supporting me, for supporting Khiren. I definitely recognize a lot of names from the chat, and that's one of the things I honestly look forward to a lot as the host. That, like I said, I don't just invite people on the show randomly. I only invite them on if I'm familiar with their content. That means being, at least on some level, familiar with their chat, and it's always fun to see, those names that I've been chatting along with appear over here and supporting you and giving me a chance as well. So thank you all for stopping by. If you feel so inclined, you can follow me here, and if you aren't already following Khiren, be sure to follow her. We have the links for her Twitch and Twitter down at the bottom of the screen. It's just Khiren, and on Twitter it's got that underscore beforehand, and it seems that we do have a target. Yes, Christy underscore.
I'm gonna have us raid Esseph, who, from the name, you might figure out that she is associated with Esseph, who did my BGM and the mixing for the cover that I did. He's basically pairing up with a friend of his to help her become a VTuber associated with his brand. He's not necessarily managing her, but helping make her covers and music and stuff as she goes. And she's also just already been such a sweetheart and really, really fun to watch and hang out with. So I want to bring everyone over there when I have the chance.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to get ready to move over to the ending screen, but everyone do be sure to stick around for the raid. Like I mentioned, please be sure to follow Khiren. Check her out if you're looking for emotes or other commissions of that sort. Follow me here on Twitch and Twitter. It's just VTuber Talk. I usually do one show a week. I've actually had 2 this week, so that's been very fun. But, like I said, I'm not full-time, but every show is different. Every guest is unique. And Khiren, I am flattered and honored to count you among the people that I have had the opportunity to talk with. This has been such a delight. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me on. I'm really honored that you wanted to reach out and have me on your show, and this was really, really fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed. Well, everyone, thank you again for tuning in. I will see you next time. Have a great rest of your day.